The knock came at 11:47 p.m., three sharp raps that cut through the sound of rain hammering Ryan Carter's roof. When he opened the door, a soaked young woman stood shivering under his porch light, mascara streaked down her cheeks, designer clothes clinging to her frame. She didn't ask for money or directions. She asked for sanctuary. Ryan, a broke single father barely keeping his own world together, had every reason to say no, but something in her eyes, equal parts terror and defiance, made him step aside. That decision would shatter the fragile peace he'd built, drag him into a war with people who owned half the city, and force him to choose between survival and doing what's right. If you want to see how one night can change everything, stay with me until the end, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain had started around 9, one of those relentless November storms that turned Seattle streets into rivers and made the old pipes in Ryan Carter's rental house groan like they were in pain. He'd spent the evening the way he spent most evenings, reheating leftover mac and cheese, helping his 7-year-old daughter Mia with homework that seemed designed to torture second graders and their parents equally, and pretending he wasn't counting the days until his next paycheck. Mia had finally crashed around 10:30, sprawled across her twin bed, with her arm thrown over Mr. Whiskers, the threadbare stuffed cat she'd had since she was 2. Ryan stood in her doorway for a moment, watching her chest rise and fall, feeling that familiar mix of overwhelming love and crushing inadequacy that defined his existence as a single parent. The knock startled him so badly, he nearly dropped his phone. Nobody knocked at Ryan's door at midnight. Hell, nobody knocked at Ryan's door at all except the landlord on the first of the month, and occasionally Mrs. Patterson from next door when her cable went out. He stood in the narrow hallway of his rental, a sagging craftsman that had probably been charming in 1952, but now just looked tired, and debated pretending he wasn't home. The knock came again, more urgent this time. Ryan moved to the front window and pulled the curtain back an inch. The porch light he'd installed last spring after Mia announced she was afraid of the dark revealed a young woman, mid-20s maybe, standing in the downpour. She wasn't wearing a coat. Her white blouse was plastered to her skin. Her dark slacks looked like they cost more than Ryan's car, and she was shaking so hard he could see it from inside. His first thought was drugs. His second was that she needed help. He opened the door. Up close, she was prettier than he'd realized, with delicate features and dark hair that hung in wet ropes around her face. But it was her eyes that stopped him, wide and brown and absolutely terrified. "Please," she said, and her voice cracked on the word. "I need somewhere to stay, just for tonight. I can pay you." "Are you in trouble?" Ryan asked. She flinched like he'd hit her. "Yes." "Police trouble?" "No, worse." Ryan had no idea what could be worse than police trouble, but something in his gut told him she was telling the truth. He glanced past her at the empty street, at the pools of water gathering under broken streetlights, and made a decision he'd probably regret. "Come inside before you catch pneumonia." She hesitated, like this might be a trap, then stepped across the threshold. Water immediately began pooling on his already warped hardwood floor. She stood there dripping, arms wrapped around herself, looking small and lost despite being nearly his height. "I'm Ryan," he said, closing the door and engaging both locks. "Ryan Carter." "Clara." She didn't offer a last name. "Okay, Clara, you want to tell me what kind of trouble you're running from?" "Not particularly." "Fair enough." He grabbed a towel from the bathroom and handed it to her. She took it with both hands like it was a life raft. "You hungry?" She blinked at him, clearly not expecting the question. Yes, actually. I've got leftover mac and cheese that's probably still safe to eat, some bread that's only a little stale, and I think there's part of a rotisserie chicken in the fridge." He paused. "It's not much." "It's more than I had an hour ago." Ryan led her to the kitchen, a cramped galley with yellowing linoleum and appliances that had probably been new when Nixon was president. Clara sank into one of the 2 mismatched chairs at his small table while he pulled containers from the fridge. He could feel her watching him as he moved around the kitchen, could sense the tension radiating off her like heat. "You live alone?" she asked quietly. "Me and my daughter, she's 7, asleep upstairs." He glanced at her. "You're not going to murder us, are you?" A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "No." "Good to know." He set a plate in front of her, reheated mac and cheese, the chicken, some baby carrots that were starting to get soft. It's not fancy. I don't need fancy, she said, and picked up the fork like she hadn't eaten in days. She probably hadn't, Ryan realized, watching her try not to wolf down the food. Her hands were shaking badly enough that she had trouble getting the fork to her mouth. There were bruises on her wrists, faint but visible now that she'd pushed up her sleeves. Finger marks. When's the last time you ate? He asked. Yesterday morning, maybe. She took a breath, visibly trying to slow down. Sorry, I know I look desperate. You look like someone who's had a shit week. That got a real laugh out of her, short and sharp. That's one way to put it. Ryan grabbed a beer from the fridge, his last one, and sat down across from her. He didn't drink it, just turned the bottle in his hands while she ate. The rain kept hammering the windows, and somewhere in the house, a pipe knocked against the wall in a rhythm that almost sounded like Morse code. So, he said eventually, you gonna tell me anything? Clara set down her fork. She'd demolished about half the food, which was impressive considering how little he'd given her. What do you want to know? Start with why you're running. Because if I don't, they'll make me go back. Who's they? She was quiet for a long moment. My family. Ryan had been expecting a lot of answers. Abusive boyfriend, crazy ex, drug dealers, human traffickers. But family hadn't made the list. Your family's that bad? You have no idea. Try me. Clara looked at him, really looked at him, like she was weighing whether he could handle the truth. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she started talking. My name is Clara Hayes. My father is Richard Hayes. You've probably heard of him. Ryan had. Everyone in Seattle had heard of Richard Hayes. The man owned half the city's real estate, had his fingers in everything from tech startups to shipping companies, and showed up on the news every time there was a gala or charity event or political fundraiser. He was rich in a way that made other rich people look poor. You're serious, Ryan said. Unfortunately. So why are you sitting in my shitty kitchen eating leftover mac and cheese? Because 3 days ago, my father informed me that I was being married off to Gregory Brennan. You know him? The name sounds familiar. He's 46, twice divorced, and under investigation for securities fraud. Claire's voice was flat, emotionless. Also, he gives my father access to some extremely profitable connections in Hong Kong. It's a business arrangement. I'm the merchandise. Ryan took a long drink of his beer. That's medieval. That's my family. She pushed the plate away, appetite apparently gone. I said no. My father said it wasn't a request. We had a fight. He locked me in my room, actual locks on the outside of the door, and told me I had a week to come to my senses. So I waited until the security guard rotation changed, climbed out a second-story window, and ran. Jesus Christ. I've been moving for 3 days, sleeping in bus stations, public libraries, anywhere I could find. I dumped my phone in a river because I knew they'd track it. I've been avoiding cameras, using cash I stole from my father's desk. She laughed bitterly. I took a self-defense class in college. They taught us to go to police stations if we were in danger. But the police chief plays golf with my father every Sunday. The mayor's at our house for dinner once a month. I can't go to the authorities because my family owns the authorities. Ryan set down his beer. So you came here. I've been walking for hours. I was trying to get to the bus station, catch something out of state, but I'm exhausted and I'm scared and I saw your light on and She trailed off. This was stupid. I shouldn't have involved you. They'll find me eventually. Maybe not. You don't know them. No, Ryan admitted. But I know what it's like to be stuck in a situation you can't escape. And I know what it's like to need help and not get it. Clara studied him with those sharp, intelligent eyes. Why are you being kind to me? You don't know me. I could be lying about all of this. Are you? No. Then that's why. He stood up, carried her empty plate to the sink. You can stay tonight. There's a couch in the living room. It's lumpy, but it's dry. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. I can't pay you. Did I ask for payment? No, but then stop trying to turn this into a transaction. Ryan turned to face her. Look, I don't have much. I work 2 jobs. Days at an auto shop, nights doing security at a warehouse. I'm behind on every bill that exists. My daughter wears clothes from Goodwill and thinks McDonald's is fancy. But I've got a couch and some blankets, and nobody's going to come through that door tonight because the kind of people I know don't have the connections to find you. So just let me help, okay?" Clara's eyes were shining with tears she refused to let fall. "Okay." Ryan found her a blanket and an old Seahawks t-shirt that hung on her like a dress. She changed in the bathroom while he made up the couch with sheets that didn't match and a pillow that had seen better days. When she emerged, scrubbed clean and drowning in his clothes, she looked about 18 years old. "Thank you," she said softly. "Get some sleep. We'll talk in the morning." He was halfway to the stairs when she spoke again. "Ryan?" "Yeah?" "Why did you open the door?" He thought about that. "Because nobody opened it for me when I needed them to." Upstairs, he checked on Mia, still dead asleep, and then collapsed into his own bed. Through the thin floor, he could hear Clara moving around downstairs, the creak of the couch as she settled in. He stared at the ceiling, at the water stain that looked vaguely like Texas, and wondered what the hell he'd just gotten himself into. He didn't sleep well. Morning came too early, announced by Mia launching herself onto his bed with the enthusiasm of a golden retriever. "Daddy, there's a lady on our couch," Ryan groaned and pulled the pillow over his face. "I know, baby. Who is she? Why is she here? Is she staying? Can I talk to her?" "Slow down." He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Mia was already dressed, mismatched socks, inside-out shirt, yesterday's pants, and vibrating with curiosity. "Her name is Clara. She needed somewhere to stay last night. And yes, you can talk to her, but maybe let her wake up first?" Too late. Mia was already thundering down the stairs. By the time Ryan made it to the living room, Mia was perched on the coffee table, chattering at Clara, who was sitting up on the couch looking bewildered but not unhappy. She'd folded the blanket neatly and was still wearing his old t-shirt. "And Daddy says I'm not allowed to have a real pet because we can't afford it. But I have Mr. Whiskers, and he's basically real except he doesn't poop. Which Daddy says is actually better. And I'm in second grade and my teacher is Mrs. Morrison, and she's nice except when you talk during quiet time. And what's your name?" "Clara," Clara managed to get in. "That's pretty. Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" "Mia," Ryan said sharply. "What? I'm just asking." Clara smiled, a real one this time. "No, sweetheart. I'm just a friend who needed help." "Oh, okay." Mia accepted this without question, the way kids did. "Do you want breakfast? Daddy makes really good cereal." "I pour milk on cereal," Ryan corrected. "That's not cooking." "Still good," Mia insisted. They ate breakfast at the cramped kitchen table. Cheerios for Mia, the last of the coffee for Ryan, toast for Clara, because it was literally all they had. Mia dominated the conversation, telling Clara everything about her life in that stream of consciousness way 7-year-olds had. Clara listened like it was the most interesting thing she'd ever heard. Ryan watched them and felt something shift in his chest. It had been 2 years since Mia's mother left, just walked out one Tuesday morning and never came back, leaving a note that said she wasn't cut out for motherhood and a signed custody agreement on the kitchen table. 2 years of Ryan doing this alone, of every meal and bedtime and skinned knee and parent-teacher conference being just him. Mia had stopped asking about her mother after the first 6 months, had adapted to their little 2-person unit with the resilience of childhood. But watching her talk to Clara, watching her be excited about another adult in the house, Ryan realized how much she'd been missing. "I gotta get her to school," he said eventually, standing up to clear dishes. Clara stood too. "I should probably go." "Go where?" She didn't have an answer for that. "Look," Ryan said, lowering his voice so Mia wouldn't hear. "I need to drop her off, then I've got a shift at the shop until 3. You can stay here if you want, rest. Figure out your next move. Door locks from the inside and nobody's going to bother you." "I can't just—" "Yes, you can." He grabbed his keys. "Mia, get your backpack. We're late." The morning routine was its usual chaos. Mia couldn't find her homework, insisted she needed to bring Mr. Whiskers for show and tell, even though it wasn't show and tell day, and somehow got syrup in her hair despite not eating anything with syrup. By the time Ryan got her buckled into his ancient Honda Civic, he was already exhausted. Clara stood in the doorway, watching them leave. She still looked lost, but less terrified than the night before. "I'll be back around 3:30, Ryan called through the car window. "Help yourself to whatever's in the fridge. She nodded, and he could see her working up to say something. "Thank you," she said finally. "I mean it." Ryan just waved and backed out of the driveway. The elementary school was a 15-minute drive through Seattle traffic that somehow always took 30 minutes. Mia kept up a steady stream of chatter about Clara. Wasn't she nice? Wasn't she pretty? Did Daddy think she'd still be there when they got home? Could she stay for dinner? "We'll see, baby," Ryan said, which was his standard answer when he had no idea what the actual answer was. He walked Mia to her classroom, waved to Mrs. Morrison, and made it back to his car before the full weight of the situation hit him. He had a runaway heiress hiding in his house. The daughter of one of the most powerful men in the city was sleeping on his couch, and he had absolutely no plan for what to do next. His phone buzzed. A text from Tommy, his manager at the auto shop. "Where are you? Got a Honda that needs a full brake job." Ryan sighed and started the car. Real life didn't stop just because you'd made a questionable decision the night before. The shop was busy, which was good because it meant Ryan didn't have time to think. He spent the morning buried in brake pads and rotors, his hands black with grease, his mind mercifully blank. Tommy left him alone, which was one of the many reasons Ryan had stayed at this job despite the shit pay. Tommy understood that sometimes people needed to work in silence. It was almost 2 when his phone rang. Unknown number. Ryan normally didn't answer unknown numbers, but something made him step outside and pick up. "Is this Ryan Carter?" A man's voice, smooth and cultured. "Who's asking?" "My name is Michael Preston. I work for the Hayes family. I believe you have something that belongs to them." Ryan's blood went cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please don't insult my intelligence, Mr. Carter. Clara was tracked to your neighborhood last night. Given that you're one of the few residents who was still awake at midnight, it's a reasonable assumption that she sought shelter with you. Even if that were true, which I'm not saying it is, why would I tell you? Because the Hayes family is prepared to be very generous to anyone who assists in Clara's safe return. We're talking about a significant financial reward. Enough to change your life, Mr. Carter. I've done my research. You're behind on rent. Your daughter needs dental work you can't afford. You work 2 jobs and still barely make ends meet. Why struggle when you don't have to?" Ryan's grip tightened on the phone. "Because some things matter more than money." "How noble. Does your daughter agree? Will she thank you when you're evicted, when you can't provide for her?" "I provide for her just fine." "Do you?" Preston's voice sharpened. "You're 1 missed paycheck from homelessness, Mr. Carter. 1 medical emergency from bankruptcy. I'm offering you a way out. By betraying someone who asked me for help. By returning a mentally unstable young woman to her family, who love her very much and are worried sick. Clara has had episodes before, Mr. Carter. She's not well. She needs professional help, not to be enabled by strangers." Ryan thought about the bruises on Clara's wrists, the terror in her eyes, the way she'd flinched when he asked if she was in trouble. "She seemed pretty clear-headed to me," he said. Preston sighed. "I had hoped we could resolve this amicably. Unfortunately, you're making that difficult. Let me be very clear. The Hayes family will find Clara. The only question is whether you're remembered as someone who helped or someone who stood in the way. One of those outcomes is much more pleasant than the other." "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality. I'll give you until 5 o'clock to reconsider. After that, things become complicated." The line went dead. Ryan stood in the parking lot of the auto shop, greasy and exhausted, and realized he'd just declared war on one of the most powerful families in Seattle, with a cell phone and a beat-up Honda as his only weapons. He called the house. No answer. Called again. Still nothing. "Tommy!" he yelled, running back inside. "I gotta go. Family emergency. You okay?" "Not remotely." He broke every speed limit between the shop and his house, his heart pounding, imagining black SUVs and men in suits and Clara being dragged away. The house looked quiet when he pulled up, exactly as he'd left it, but that didn't mean anything. Ryan burst through the front door. Clara was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open in front of her, still wearing his t-shirt, looking perfectly calm. "You're here," he gasped. She looked up, startled. "Where else would I be?" "They called me. Your family. Some guy named Preston." All the color drained from Clara's face. "What did he say?" Ryan told her everything. Clara listened without interrupting, her expression growing harder with every word. "He's lying," she said when Ryan finished. "About all of it. I don't have episodes. I'm not mentally unstable. That's just what they tell people to explain why I don't fall in line." She stood up, started pacing the small kitchen. "And the threat is real. They will come here. They will make your life hell." "So what do we do?" "We?" Clara stopped pacing. "Ryan, there's no we. You've done more than enough. I should leave before what? Before they ruin my life anyway out of spite?" He laughed without humor. "I picked a side the moment I opened my door last night. Might as well commit." "You don't understand what you're committing to." "Then explain it to me." Clara sat back down, rubbed her face with both hands. "My father doesn't lose. Ever. If he wants something, he gets it. If someone stands in his way, they disappear. Not literally, but might as well be. Fired, blacklisted, destroyed. He owns judges, cops, politicians. He has more money than some countries. And right now what he wants is me back under his control." "Why you specifically? You've got siblings?" "A brother, Marcus. He's 35 and runs the company with my father. Perfect son, perfect future CEO, completely soulless." She smiled bitterly. "I was supposed to be the accessory, the pretty daughter who marries well and makes good connections. I was never supposed to have opinions or want things." "But you do." "Yeah, I do." She met his eyes. "I want to live my own life, make my own choices, be more than a bargaining chip. That's apparently too much to ask." Ryan thought about Mia, about the life he wanted for her. A life where she could be anything, do anything, never have to compromise herself for someone else's plans. "It's not too much to ask," he said quietly. "It's the bare minimum." Claire's expression softened. "You're a good person, Ryan Carter." "I'm really not. I'm just tired of watching powerful people crush everyone else." "That still makes you better than most." They sat in silence for a moment, the afternoon light slanting through the kitchen window, dust motes drifting in the air. Somewhere down the street, a dog was barking. Normal neighborhood sounds, normal life continuing while Ryan's quietly exploded. "So," Clara said eventually, "if you're serious about this, we need a plan." "I'm open to suggestions." "First, I can't stay here. They know about this place now. They'll be watching." "Where else is there?" Clara bit her lip, thinking. "I have a friend, Melissa Chen. We went to college together. She lives on the other side of the city, works for a nonprofit. My family doesn't know about her because I kept her separate from that world on purpose." "You trust her?" "With my life." "Okay, so we get you there. Then what?" "Then I need proof." Clara pulled the laptop closer. "I've been digging through old emails, documents, anything I can access remotely. My father's business isn't exactly legal, Ryan. There are bribes, illegal land deals, environmental violations that were buried, workers who got hurt and were paid off to stay quiet. If I can compile enough evidence and get it to the right people, actual investigators, federal level, outside my father's reach, I might have leverage." "Leverage to do what?" "To make him leave me alone. If he knows I can destroy him, maybe he'll let me go." Ryan whistled low. "That's ambitious." "It's also dangerous. If he finds out what I'm doing before I'm ready." She didn't finish the sentence. "How long do you need?" "A few weeks, maybe. To gather everything, find the right people to give it to, make sure it's solid enough that it can't be buried." "And you can do all that from your friend's place?" "If she'll have me, yeah." Ryan checked his watch. 3:15. He had to pick up Mia in 45 minutes. "Okay, pack up whatever you need. I'll drive you." "Ryan, if they're watching the house, then we'll be smart about it. Give me a minute." He went upstairs, changed into clean clothes, grabbed his daughter's soccer bag from the closet. It was bright pink with her name written in puffy paint. Then he found a baseball cap and sunglasses he'd gotten free at a Mariners game 3 years ago. Downstairs, Clara had changed into her now dry clothes from last night. She still looked expensive, but at least she didn't look like she was drowning in his t-shirt anymore. "Put these on," Ryan said, handing her the cap and sunglasses. "And this." He gave her the soccer bag. "You're going to be a very tall second grader." Clara actually laughed. "This is your plan? You have a better one?" "Not really." They waited until 3:25 when the street was busy with parents heading to school pickup. Ryan led Clara out to his car, moving casually like there was nothing unusual about a wealthy woman in designer clothes wearing a child's soccer gear. He opened the back door and Clara slid in, hunching down below the window line. "Stay low until I say otherwise," Ryan instructed. He drove slowly, checking his mirrors constantly. There, 2 cars back, a black Mercedes that didn't belong in this neighborhood. It pulled out when Ryan did, maintaining distance. "We've got a tail," Ryan said quietly. Clara swore under her breath. "What do we do?" Ryan thought fast. He'd grown up in Seattle, knew these streets better than he knew his own face. And he had one advantage. His car looked like it was held together with duct tape and prayer, but under the hood was an engine he'd rebuilt himself. Tommy had let him use the shop, helped him source parts. It was the one nice thing Ryan owned. "Hold on," he said, and took a hard right. The next 15 minutes were a blur of narrow residential streets, sudden turns, and at one point, a screaming run through a grocery store parking lot that probably violated several traffic laws. The Mercedes tried to keep up, but kept getting stuck at lights or blocked by slower traffic. By the time Ryan pulled into a 7-Eleven 3 neighborhoods over, they'd lost it. "Okay," he said, breathing hard. "You've got maybe 20 minutes before they regroup. Where's your friend?" Clara gave him an address in Fremont. Ryan plugged it into his phone and started driving, taking a deliberately confusing route. Clara stayed low in the back seat, not speaking, but he could see her hands shaking. Melissa Chen's apartment was in a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and industrial windows. Ryan pulled into the underground garage and finally let Clara sit up. "Thank you," she said. "Seriously, you didn't have to do any of this." "Yeah, I did." He turned in his seat to look at her. "You have my number. If you need anything at all, you call. Understand?" Clara nodded, eyes bright with tears she still refused to shed. "And Clara? Burn them down. Whatever evidence you find, whoever you need to give it to, do it. People like your father only stop when someone makes them." She reached forward and squeezed his shoulder. "I will." Then she was gone, disappearing into the building with the soccer bag and his sunglasses, looking small and determined and absolutely certain. Ryan sat in his car for a long moment, then checked the time. 4:10. He was late for Mia. The drive to the school felt surreal, like he was moving through someone else's life. He kept expecting black SUVs to run him off the road, or police sirens or something, but there was just traffic and rain and the usual chaos of Seattle at rush hour. Mia was waiting with Mrs. Morrison, the last kid to be picked up, looking worried. "Sorry, baby," Ryan said, scooping her into a hug. "Got stuck at work." "It's okay. Is Clara still at our house?" "No, sweetheart. She had to go stay with a friend." Mia's face fell. "But she's coming back, right?" Ryan didn't know how to answer that. "Maybe. We'll see." That night, after Mia was asleep, Ryan sat in his dark living room and waited for the consequences to arrive. But there was just silence and the rain and the distant sound of traffic. His phone didn't ring. Nobody knocked on his door. It was almost worse than confrontation, this waiting, this not knowing. He finally fell asleep on the couch around 2 a.m., his phone clutched in his hand, still waiting for disaster. It didn't come that night, but it was coming. Ryan could feel it like a storm on the horizon, gathering strength, ready to break over his small, fragile world and wash away everything he'd built. He just hoped that when it did, he'd be strong enough to stand against it. The consequences arrived on a Wednesday, 5 days after Ryan had dropped Clara at Melissa's apartment. Not with sirens or threats, but with a registered letter slipped under his door while he was at work. Ryan found it when he got home at 3:30, still in his grease-stained coveralls, exhausted from a double shift. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive-looking, with the logo of Patterson and Holmes Legal Group embossed in gold at the top. His hands were shaking as he opened it. The letter was professionally brutal. Mr. Carter was hereby notified that his lease agreement was under review due to violations of the occupancy clause, specifically harboring an unauthorized tenant. Furthermore, there were concerns about the property's condition that required immediate inspection. Failure to comply would result in eviction proceedings. The letter was signed by someone named Jennifer Patterson, senior partner, and dated 2 days ago. Shit. Ryan said to his empty living room. His phone rang. Tommy. Hey man, we need to talk, Tommy said, and his voice had that careful quality that meant bad news was coming. Corporate called. They're doing some restructuring. I fought for you, I really did, but they're cutting hours across the board and you're part-time, so I'm being let go. Not let go. Hours reduced, significantly. I can give you maybe 10 hours a week, Max. I'm sorry, Ryan. This came from way above my head. Ryan closed his eyes. It's fine. Thanks for telling me. If anything opens up, yeah, thanks, Tommy. He hung up and stood there in his cramped living room, holding the eviction letter in one hand and his phone in the other, doing math in his head. He had maybe $800 in his checking account. Rent was $1,200. The security job paid minimum wage and gave him 20 hours a week if he was lucky. Mia needed new shoes, the car needed an oil change, and now he had 10 hours at the shop instead of 40. The math didn't work. It didn't even come close to working. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. This can all go away. Just tell us where she is. Ryan deleted it and sat down hard on the couch. This was what Preston had meant by things getting complicated. The Hayes family wasn't going to come after him directly. That would be too obvious, too crude. Instead, they'd dismantle his life piece by piece until he had nothing left to lose. The front door burst open and Mia came running in, backpack bouncing, face flushed with excitement. Daddy, Mrs. Morrison says we're doing a field trip to the aquarium next month, and I need a permission slip, and can I go, please, please, please? Ryan pulled her into a hug, breathing in the kid smell of her hair, strawberry shampoo and playground dirt, and something indefinably Mia. Of course you can go, baby. It costs $15. $15 he didn't have. We'll figure it out. Mia pulled back and looked at him with those too perceptive eyes. Are you okay? You look sad. Just tired. Long day at work. You're always tired. Yeah, well, that's what being a grown-up is. She accepted this with the same resignation she accepted most of life's disappointments, homework, bedtime, the fact that they couldn't afford a real vacation. It broke Ryan's heart a little more each time. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ryan sat at the kitchen table with a beer he couldn't really afford and his laptop open to job listings. Everything required experience he didn't have or certifications he couldn't pay for or hours that would conflict with Mia's schedule. He was trapped in that special kind of poverty where you worked yourself to death and still couldn't get ahead, where one unexpected expense could destroy you. His phone rang. Clara. Did something happen? She asked immediately. How did you know? Because I know my father. What did he do? Ryan told her about the letter, the job, the text message. Clara listened in silence, and when he finished, she let out a long, shaky breath. I'm so sorry. Ryan, I never wanted... I know, it's not your fault. It is, though. You helped me, and now you're paying for it. She paused. I have money. Not much. I grabbed what I could from my apartment before I ran, but I can help with rent, with bills. No. Ryan, I said no. You need that money to disappear if things go bad. I'm not taking it. Then what are you going to do? I don't know yet. He rubbed his face, feeling every one of his 32 years. How's the evidence gathering going? Slowly. I'm finding things, but it's not enough yet. My father's good at covering his tracks. She hesitated. Melissa's been amazing. She's let me basically take over her spare room, hasn't asked questions she doesn't need answers to. But Ryan, if they're already coming after you this hard, what happens when I actually try to use what I've found? Then we deal with it. That's not a plan. It's all I've got right now. They talked for a few more minutes before Clara had to go. Melissa was making dinner, and Clara was trying to not be a completely terrible houseguest. After she hung up, Ryan sat in the dark kitchen and let himself feel the full weight of what he'd done. He'd risked everything for a stranger. His job, his home, his ability to provide for his daughter. And the worst part was he'd do it again. Because the alternative was becoming the kind of person who looked away when someone needed help. And Ryan had seen too much of that in his life already. The next morning brought another complication in the form of Mrs. Patterson from next door knocking on his door at 7 a.m. with her arms crossed and a sour expression. Mr. Carter, We need to discuss your visitor from last week. Ryan, who'd been in the middle of making Mia's lunch, tried to look confused. I'm sorry? The young woman. Very late at night. I happened to see her arrive and then leave days later. Now, I'm not one to pry, but this is a family neighborhood, and she's a cousin, Ryan lied smoothly. Her car broke down. She stayed one night. Mrs. Patterson's eyes narrowed. Funny, because just yesterday a very well-dressed man came by asking questions. Said he was with social services, wanted to know about your living situation, whether your daughter was being properly cared for. Ryan's blood went cold. Social services? That's what he claimed. Though between you and me, he didn't much look like a social worker. Too expensive a suit. She leaned in. What kind of trouble are you in, Mr. Carter? No trouble. Just a misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. She didn't sound convinced. Well, I told him I've never seen anything improper. That little girl of yours is well-fed and happy and clearly loved, but I'd appreciate it if whatever this is doesn't land on my doorstep again. It won't. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. She left, and Ryan leaned against the door, his heart pounding. Social services. They were threatening to go after Mia now, to question his fitness as a parent. The message was clear. Give up Clara or lose everything. Daddy? Mia appeared at the top of the stairs in her pajamas. Who was that? Nobody, baby. Get dressed for school. At work, his now reduced shift at the shop, Ryan couldn't focus. He stripped a bolt on a brake caliper, forgot to drain the oil pan before removing the plug, and nearly backed a customer's car into a wall. Tommy pulled him aside during lunch. You want to tell me what's going on? Tommy asked. Nothing. Just distracted. This about that family emergency last week? Ryan had forgotten he'd used that excuse. Yeah, it's complicated. Tommy studied him for a long moment. You in some kind of trouble? Real trouble. Would you believe me if I said no? Not even a little bit. Tommy sighed. Look, I can't give you your hours back. That really did come from corporate. But if you need help, if there's something I can do, there's not. But thanks. Ryan, I've known you 3 years. You show up, you work hard, you don't complain, but you look like hell right now and you're making mistakes. So either tell me what's going on or take the rest of the day off before you hurt yourself. Ryan wanted to argue, but Tommy was right. His head wasn't in it. Okay, I'll go. He drove aimlessly for a while, too wired to go home, too exhausted to think clearly. He ended up at a playground near Mia's school, sitting on a bench and watching other people's kids play. Normal kids with normal problems. Not kids whose dads had accidentally declared war on billionaires. His phone rang. Unknown number again. Against his better judgment, he answered. Mr. Carter, Michael Preston's smooth voice filled his ear. I trust you received our messages. If by messages you mean threats, then yeah. I prefer to think of them as incentives. Motivations to make the right choice. Going after my job and my housing, threatening my daughter with social services? That's your idea of motivation? We're simply making the cost of your decision clear. You're protecting someone who doesn't want protection. Clara belongs with her family, Mr. Carter. Everything we're doing is for her own good. Funny how people who do terrible things always claim it's for someone's own good. Preston's voice hardened. You're out of your depth. You're a mechanic living paycheck to paycheck in a house that's falling apart. Clara is accustomed to a certain lifestyle, a certain level of care. What can you possibly offer her that we can't? Choice. Choice. Preston laughed. How philosophical. Tell me, Mr. Carter, will philosophy pay your rent? Will it feed your daughter? Will it keep social services from asking uncomfortable questions about your parenting? Is that what this is? You'll destroy my life unless I give her up? We're not destroying anything. We're simply removing our protection. You'd be surprised how many small problems a person can face when they don't have the right connections. Permits denied. Licenses revoked. Background checks that turn up concerning information. The world is hard for people without resources, Mr. Carter. Much harder than it needs to be. Ryan gripped the phone so hard his knuckles went white. You're a real piece of work, Preston. I'm a realist. And here's the reality. You have 48 hours to tell us where Clara is. After that, the social services investigation becomes official. Your landlord files formal eviction proceedings. and I can't guarantee what other complications might arise. Do you understand? Yeah, I understand that you're terrified of a 25-year-old woman having her own life. 48 hours, Preston repeated, and hung up. Ryan sat on the playground bench, surrounded by the sounds of children laughing, and felt the walls closing in. 48 hours. 2 days to either betray Clara or watch his entire life collapse. He called her. They gave me an ultimatum, he said without preamble, and explained everything Preston had said. Clara was quiet for so long Ryan thought the call had dropped. Clara? I'm here. I'm just thinking. Another pause. You should tell them. What? Where I am. You should tell them. Ryan, I can't let you lose your daughter over this. You're not letting me do anything. I made my choice. A choice you're going to regret when Mia's in foster care and you're homeless. They're bluffing. They're not. Clara's voice cracked. My father doesn't bluff. If he says he'll destroy you, he will, and he'll enjoy it. So please, just tell them where I am. I'll run again. I'll figure something else out. Run where? With what money? For how long? Ryan stood up, started pacing. No, we're not doing this. You've been working for almost a week. How close are you to having what you need? Not close enough. Maybe another 2 weeks? Minimum. Then that's what you get, 2 weeks. Ryan, listen to me. I grew up with nothing. My dad left when I was 6. My mom worked 3 jobs and still couldn't make rent half the time. I know what it's like to be powerless, to have people with money and connections crush you just because they can. And I swore that when I had a kid, I'd teach her to stand up to bullies, to do the right thing even when it's hard. He took a breath. So that's what I'm doing. I'm standing up. And if it costs me everything, at least Mia will know her dad didn't fold when someone needed him. And Clara was crying now. He could hear it. You're insane. Probably. But I'm committed. He checked his watch. I gotta pick up Mia. You focus on getting that evidence. Leave the rest to me. What are you gonna do? Honestly, I have no idea, but I've got 48 hours to figure it out. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ryan did something he'd been avoiding for 2 years. He called his ex-wife. Stephanie answered on the 4th ring, her voice thick with sleep. Ryan, it's almost midnight. I know, sorry. I need to ask you something. This is about Mia, isn't it? Not a question. If something happened to me, if I couldn't take care of her temporarily, could she stay with you? Silence. Then, what kind of trouble are you in? The kind where I need a backup plan. Jesus, Ryan, what did you do? Helped someone who needed it? Now some powerful people are pissed. Stephanie sighed, that particular sigh that meant she thought Ryan was being an idiot but wasn't surprised. She'd used it a lot when they were married. I have a life, Ryan. A job, a boyfriend. I can't just... I'm not asking you to take her permanently. Just if things go sideways. If I need someone to watch her for a while. She's your daughter, too. A daughter I haven't seen in 2 years. I know, and that's on you. But she deserves better than foster care if I can't... His voice broke. Please, Steph. I'm begging you. Another long silence. Fine. If it comes to that, call me. But Ryan, don't let it come to that. I'm trying not to. He hung up feeling marginally better. At least if everything went to hell, Mia wouldn't end up with strangers. It wasn't much, but it was something. The next day at the security job, a graveyard shift watching an empty warehouse, Ryan had time to think. Too much time. He walked the perimeter every hour, checked locks, watched security camera feeds that showed nothing but shadows and rain. And he tried to figure out how a broke mechanic could fight a billionaire. The answer he kept coming back to was that he couldn't. Not directly. Richard Hayes had every advantage: money, connections, power, lawyers. Ryan had none of those things. But he had something Clara had said that first night, something that had stuck with him. I can't go to the authorities because my family owns the authorities. Owned, past tense, present tense, but not future tense. Ryan pulled out his phone and started searching. News articles about Richard Hayes, business profiles, charity galas. And there, buried in a 6-month-old Seattle Times piece about tech investment, a mention of an ongoing federal investigation into real estate fraud in the Northwest. No charges yet, but the investigation was active. Federal. outside local jurisdiction. Outside Hayes's immediate control. Ryan kept digging. The lead investigator was named Rebecca Torres, based out of the FBI's Seattle field office. She'd made a career out of taking down white-collar criminals, had a reputation for being relentless and incorruptible. If anyone could stand up to Richard Hayes, it might be her. But how did a nobody like Ryan get an FBI agent to take him seriously? He called Clara. Do you have anything concrete yet? Actual evidence, not just suspicions? Some. Email chains about bribes disguised as consulting fees. Records of environmental violations that were supposed to be fixed but weren't. Photos of unsafe worker conditions at one of the construction sites. She paused. Why? Because I think I know who we need to give it to, but it has to be solid. It has to be something they can't ignore. Who? FBI agent named Rebecca Torres. She's already investigating real estate fraud. If we can connect your father's operation to her existing case, she might actually follow through. Claire's voice picked up energy. Ryan, that's brilliant. It's desperate, but yeah, it might work. He checked the time. 20 hours left on Preston's deadline. How fast can you pull together what you have? Give me until tomorrow morning. I'll compile everything. Okay, I'll figure out how to get it to Torres. And then what? Then we pray she moves fast. The next morning, Ryan dropped Mia at school with a smile he didn't feel and drove to the FBI's Seattle field office. It was downtown, a glass and steel building that radiated federal authority. He almost turned around 3 times before actually parking. Inside, he told the receptionist he needed to speak with Agent Torres regarding an ongoing investigation. The receptionist looked at him, unshaved, wearing his lease-stained jeans and a mariner's hoodie, with obvious skepticism. Do you have an appointment? No, but Agent Torres doesn't see walk-ins. You can submit a tip online or tell her it's about Richard Hayes and real estate fraud involving federal land deals. Ryan had no idea if Hayes' operation touched federal land, but it sounded official. Tell her I have evidence. The receptionist's expression didn't change, but she picked up the phone. A brief, quiet conversation. Then, someone will be out to speak with you. Have a seat. Ryan sat in the lobby for 45 minutes, watching FBI agents come and go, feeling more out of place by the minute. He was just starting to think they'd forgotten about him when a woman in her 40s appeared, sharp-eyed and professional in a dark suit. Mr. Carter, I'm Agent Rebecca Torres. Follow me. She led him to a small conference room and closed the door. Ryan's hands were sweating. So, Torres said, sitting across from him, you mentioned Richard Hayes. Yeah, his daughter came to me for help. She ran away from home and he's trying to force her back. But that's not the important part. The important part is she has evidence of illegal activity, bribes, environmental violations, unsafe working conditions, fraud, things that might connect to your investigation. Torres leaned back in her chair, expression neutral. And where is this evidence? Being compiled right now. I can have it to you by this afternoon. And why are you bringing this to me instead of Ms. Hayes herself? Because her family's looking for her. If she shows up here, they'll know within the hour. But me? I'm nobody. Just a mechanic trying to do the right thing. The right thing? Torres smiled slightly. Mr. Carter, do you know how many people walk into this office claiming they have evidence against rich people who've wronged them? A lot? Dozens every month. And you know how much of it is actually useful? Almost none. Most of it's bitter ex-employees with axes to grind or conspiracy theorists with file folders full of nonsense. She leaned forward. So convince me you're different. Ryan met her eyes. Richard Hayes is currently using his connections to destroy my life because I helped his daughter. In the last week, I've lost my job, I'm being evicted, and someone claiming to be from social services is investigating whether I'm fit to parent my 7-year-old, all because I gave a scared woman a place to sleep. He pulled out his phone, showed her the eviction letter, the text message from Preston. That's the kind of power Hayes has at the local level. But you're federal. He doesn't own you. So yeah, maybe I'm just another nobody with a grudge. Or maybe I'm someone with actual evidence who's desperate enough to walk into the FBI and risk making things even worse. Torres studied him for a long moment. Then she pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. Get me the evidence by 5 p.m. today. If it's substantive, we'll move forward. If it's not, I can't help you. Fair enough. And Mr. Carter, be careful. If Hayes is as connected as you say, he'll know you were here. I'm counting on it. Ryan left the FBI building feeling lighter than he had in days. It wasn't a solution yet, but it was a path forward. He called Clara and told her about the meeting. 5 p.m., he said. Can you make that? I'll make it. Melissa's helping me organize everything. We'll put together a package that's impossible to ignore. Good. Send it to me and I'll deliver it personally. Ryan, if this works, if Torres actually goes after my father, things are going to get worse before they get better. I know. He'll retaliate hard. Let him. At least we'll be fighting back. At 4:30, Clara's email arrived. 23 pages of documentation, photos, scanned emails, financial records. Ryan printed everything at a FedEx, spending money he didn't have, and drove back to the FBI office. Torres was waiting. She took the folder without comment and spent 15 minutes reviewing it while Ryan sat there trying not to fidget. Finally, she looked up. This is good, really good. Some of it overlaps with what we already have, but there's new information here too, information that could be actionable. So you'll investigate? We already are investigating. This just gives us more to work with. She paused. How reachable is Ms. Hayes if we need to verify some of this information? Ryan hesitated. Giving up Clara's location, even to the FBI, felt like a betrayal. But Torres seemed to read his mind. I'm not going to tell her family where she is, Mr. Carter, but if we move forward with this, she may need to give an official statement at some point. I'll pass that along. You do that. Torres stood, extending her hand. Thank you for bringing this in. Not many people would have the guts. Or the stupidity. She smiled. Sometimes they're the same thing. Ryan left the FBI office as the sun was setting, his phone buzzing with a text from Preston. Time's up, Mr. Carter. Last chance. He texted back, Go to hell. Then he turned off his phone and drove to pick up Mia, knowing that whatever came next, at least he'd stood his ground. The retaliation came faster than Ryan expected. He woke up at 6 a.m. to the sound of someone pounding on his front door. For a sleep-fogged moment, he thought it was Preston, or worse. But when he stumbled downstairs and peered through the peephole, he saw 2 police officers standing on his porch. Ryan opened the door, his stomach already sinking. Ryan Carter? The older cop asked, a heavy-set guy with gray at his temples and tired eyes. Yeah. We need you to come with us. There's been a complaint filed regarding child endangerment. What? Ryan's brain couldn't process the words. What are you talking about? A report was made to Child Protective Services. They've requested police involvement. We need to speak with you and your daughter at the station. Right now? She's asleep. She has school. Sir, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice. Upstairs, Mia's door opened. She appeared at the top of the stairs in her frozen pajamas, rubbing her eyes, looking scared. Daddy, what's happening? Ryan's hands clenched into fists. It's okay, baby. Just some people who want to talk to us. Go get dressed. The police station was exactly as grim as Ryan had imagined. Fluorescent lights, scuffed floors, the smell of stale coffee and desperation. They put him and Mia in separate rooms, which made Ryan want to put his fist through a wall. Mia was 7 years old and terrified, and they'd separated her from the only parent she had. The social worker who interviewed him was a woman in her 50s named Patricia Moss, with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every lie in the book. Mr. Carter, we received a report that you've been allowing unauthorized individuals to reside in your home. Individuals who may pose a risk to your daughter's safety. That's not true. Someone stayed one night because she needed help. That's it. One night? Moss consulted her notes. We have testimony from neighbors suggesting this person was there for several days and that she appeared distressed, possibly under the influence of substances. She wasn't on drugs. She was scared because she was running from her family. So you admit to harboring a potentially unstable individual in a home with a young child? I gave someone a safe place to sleep. That's not a crime. It is when it endangers a minor. Moss leaned forward. Mr. Carter, I've also been informed that you recently lost your primary employment, that you're facing eviction, that you work overnight shifts and leave your daughter unsupervised. I don't leave her unsupervised. Mrs. Patterson next door checks on her, and I'm home before she wakes up. A 7-year-old alone at night with only an elderly neighbor aware of her father's absence? That's questionable judgment at best. Ryan could feel the trap closing around him. Every choice he'd made to survive as a single parent was being twisted into evidence of neglect. "Where's my daughter right now?" he demanded. "I want to see her." "She's being interviewed separately, standard procedure. She's 7 years old. She doesn't need to be interrogated." "We're not interrogating her, Mr. Carter. We're ensuring her well-being." Moss closed her folder. "Here's what's going to happen. We're opening an official investigation. In the meantime, your daughter will remain in protective custody until— The hell she will." Ryan stood up so fast his chair scraped across the floor. "You're not taking my daughter." "Sir, sit down. I want a lawyer, right now. You don't get to take my kid without a court order." Moss's expression hardened. "Actually, Mr. Carter, in cases of immediate danger, we can place a child in emergency custody for up to 72 hours. And given the circumstances, your unemployment, housing instability, questionable associates, a judge will almost certainly extend that." Ryan's vision blurred at the edges. This was really happening. They were really going to take Mia away. "Please," he said, and hated how broken his voice sounded. "She's all I have. I'm a good father. Ask her. Ask anyone who knows us. I'm not perfect, but I love her and I take care of her and she's happy and healthy and Mr. Carter, if you're truly a good father, you'll cooperate with this investigation. The faster you comply, the faster we can resolve this." "Resolve it how?" "By giving you whatever the Hayes family wants?" Moss blinked. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Right. This just coincidentally happened the day after their deadline expired. This has nothing to do with Richard Hayes trying to find his daughter." "Mr. Carter, these allegations are serious and were filed through proper channels. I don't appreciate conspiracy theories." The door opened and a younger social worker poked her head in. "Patricia, the child is asking for her father. She's pretty upset." Something in Ryan snapped. He pushed past Moss, ignoring her protests, and found the room where they'd put Mia. She was sitting in a chair that was too big for her, crying silently, clutching Mr. Whiskers to her chest. When she saw Ryan, she launched herself at him. "Daddy, I want to go home. They keep asking me weird questions and I don't understand what's happening and I'm scared." Ryan wrapped his arms around her, felt her small body shaking against his. "I know, baby. I'm scared too. Did I do something wrong?" "No, you didn't do anything wrong. Neither did I. Some bad people are just trying to hurt us." Moss appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Carter, you can't— Give me 5 minutes with my daughter. Please, just 5 minutes." Something in his expression must have gotten through to her because Moss nodded and stepped back. Ryan knelt down so he was eye level with Mia. "Listen to me, okay? I need you to be really brave right now. These people think they need to take you to stay with someone else for a little while, but I'm going to fight to get you back. I promise you, I'm going to fix this. I don't want to go with someone else. I want to stay with you. I know, but if they make you go, I need you to remember that I love you more than anything in the world. And this isn't forever. Just a few days while I sort this out. What if they don't let you sort it out? What if they keep me?" Ryan couldn't answer that because the same terror was clawing at his chest. The lawyer showed up an hour later, a public defender named Marcus Chen who looked like he'd graduated law school about 15 minutes ago. He listened to Ryan's explanation with increasing concern, took notes, asked questions Ryan didn't have good answers for. "This is bad," Marcus said finally. "They've got enough to justify emergency custody. The unemployment, the housing situation, the mysterious woman showing up at odd hours, it all looks questionable on paper. So what do I do?" "Cooperate fully. Don't antagonize anyone. And hope that when they do their home visit and interview your references, everything checks out." Marcus hesitated. "Is there any truth to their allegations? Even partially?" "I helped someone who needed it. That's it. Everything else is fabricated or twisted." "And this person, where is she now?" "Safe? Away from her family." "Her family being Richard Hayes?" "You know him?" Marcus laughed without humor. "Everyone in Seattle legal circles knows Richard Hayes. He's notorious for weaponizing the system against people who cross him. If he's behind this—" He trailed off, looking worried. "If he's behind this, what?" "Then you're going to need more than a public defender." They took Mia to a foster home in Ballard. Ryan wasn't allowed to know the exact address, security reasons, they said. He could visit, supervised for 2 hours twice a week. The rest of the time, his daughter would be with strangers. He held it together until he got to his car. Then he sat in the parking lot of the police station and broke down completely, his whole body shaking with sobs he couldn't control. Everything he'd done, working himself to exhaustion, sacrificing everything to give Mia a stable life, and it had all fallen apart anyway. His phone buzzed. Clara. He couldn't answer, couldn't find words. She called again, then texted, "Ryan, please tell me you're okay." He texted back with shaking hands. "They took Mia." His phone rang immediately. "They what?" Clara's voice was sharp with panic. "Social services. They came this morning with cops, said I was endangering her by letting you stay. They've got her in foster care pending investigation." Ryan's voice cracked. "I couldn't stop them. I tried, but they just took her." "Oh my God. Ryan, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. If I hadn't—" "Don't. Just don't." He wiped his face with his sleeve. "Where are you right now?" "Still at Melissa's. Why?" "Stay there. Don't go anywhere. Don't contact anyone. Don't do anything that might leave a trail. Your father can't know we've already given the evidence to the FBI." "Screw my father. Ryan, we need to fix this. We need to get Mia back." "I'm working on it." "How? What's your plan?" Ryan didn't have one. He had a public defender who looked barely old enough to drink and a social services system that was clearly being manipulated by people with unlimited resources. He had 72 hours before emergency custody became extended custody and no idea how to prove he was a fit parent when every aspect of his life was designed to suggest otherwise. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "Then let me help. I have money. I can hire you a real lawyer, someone who can fight this properly." "With what money?" "You said you only grabbed what you could." "I have access to an account my grandmother left me. My father doesn't know about it because she set it up through a different bank. It's not a fortune, but it's enough to hire representation." "Clara, but please, you've lost your job, your home is being taken, and now they've got Mia. The least I can do is get you a lawyer who knows what they're doing." Her voice softened. "You stood up for me when nobody else would. Let me stand up for you." Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to maintain some shred of pride, but pride wasn't going to get his daughter back. "Okay," he said. "Thank you." By that afternoon, Clara had hired Jennifer Walsh, a family law attorney with 20 years of experience and a reputation for eating corrupt social workers for breakfast. She met Ryan at a coffee shop near his house, a sharp woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Ms. Hayes briefed me on the situation," Walsh said, stirring her coffee. "And I'll be honest with you, Mr. Carter, this stinks. The timing, the allegations, the speed of the response, someone with influence pushed this through." "Richard Hayes?" "Almost certainly. But proving that is difficult. What we can do is build a case that you're a competent, loving parent who made reasonable choices given difficult circumstances. We'll need character references, documentation of Mia's well-being, evidence that you've been responsible despite financial hardship." "I can get that." "Good. I'm filing a motion to challenge the emergency custody order. We'll have a hearing within 72 hours. Between now and then, I need you to pull together everything that demonstrates your fitness as a parent. School records showing Mia's attendance and performance. Medical records showing she's up to date on checkups and vaccinations. Statements from teachers, neighbors, anyone who can vouch for you. What about my job situation? We'll argue that you've been employed consistently until very recently, and that the job loss was due to circumstances beyond your control. Do you have documentation of that? Tommy at the shop might give me something." "Get it. Also, the housing situation. When's your eviction hearing?" "Next week." "We'll deal with that separately. For now, focus on the custody case. That's the priority." Ryan spent the rest of the day gathering evidence of his competence. He got a letter from Mrs. Morrison, Mia's teacher, praising her as a bright, happy, well-adjusted student. Mrs. Patterson reluctantly agreed to write a statement saying she'd never seen Ryan mistreat Mia or behave irresponsibly. The pediatrician's office faxed over records showing Mia had never missed a checkup. Tommy gave him a letter on shop letterhead explaining that Ryan's hour reduction was due to corporate restructuring, not performance issues. "You're a good guy, Ryan," Tommy said, handing it over. "Whatever's going on, I hope you come out okay." By evening, Ryan had compiled a folder of documentation that painted a picture of a struggling but devoted single father doing his best. It felt inadequate against the machinery working to destroy him, but it was something. The hearing was scheduled for Friday morning, 3 days away. Walsh warned him it would be brutal. "They're going to attack your character, your judgment, your financial situation. You need to stay calm and answer honestly. Don't get defensive, don't lose your temper, and for the love of everything, don't mention Richard Hayes or conspiracy theories. Stick to the facts of your relationship with Mia." "What are our chances?" Walsh gave him a level look. "If this were a normal case?" "Excellent. Your record is clean, Mia is clearly well cared for, and emergency custody was a massive overreach. But if Hayes has his thumb on the scale—" She trailed off. "We'll know Friday." That night, Ryan sat alone in his empty house and felt the silence pressing down on him. No Mia chattering about her day, no small feet running around upstairs, no one to tuck into bed or read stories to. Just emptiness and the knowledge that somewhere across the city, his daughter was with strangers, probably crying herself to sleep. His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize but with a Seattle area code. "Mr. Carter, this is Rebecca Torres." Ryan sat up straighter. "Agent Torres, did you find something?" "We've been reviewing the evidence you provided. It's compelling. We're moving forward with a formal investigation into Hayes Development Corporation and several of Richard Hayes' business dealings." "That's great, but it won't be fast enough to help with your custody situation. I'm aware of what's happening with your daughter. I've seen Hayes use this tactic before." "So you know he's behind it?" "I strongly suspect it, but I can't prove it. And even if I could, it wouldn't necessarily help you right now. Family court operates on different standards than federal investigations." Ryan's hope deflated. "Then why are you calling?" "Because I want you to know that we're working this case hard. Hayes has been skating for years, using his money and connections to avoid consequences. If your evidence helps us build a case against him, we will move on it. It might not save your immediate situation, but it could prevent him from doing this to someone else." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No, it's supposed to remind you why you did this in the first place." Torres paused. "Hang in there, Mr. Carter. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything, but it still matters." She hung up, and Ryan sat there holding his phone, wondering if mattering was enough when you'd lost the thing that mattered most. The next 2 days passed in a blur of anxiety and preparation. Ryan met with Walsh twice more, rehearsing his testimony, going over every detail of his life with Mia. He visited his daughter at the foster home, a cramped apartment that smelled like air freshener and housed 3 other kids, and tried to pretend everything was fine while Mia clung to him and cried. "When can I come home, Daddy?" "Soon, baby. Real soon." "Promise?" He couldn't promise. Couldn't lie to her. So he just held her tighter and hoped Friday's hearing would go their way. Clara called every night to check on him. She'd finished compiling her evidence against her father and was ready to go public if needed, but Walsh had advised against it. It could look like retaliation and hurt Ryan's case. "This is killing me," Clara said on Thursday night. "Watching you suffer for helping me and not being able to do anything about it. You hired me a lawyer, that's something. It's not enough. It's more than I had." On Friday morning, Ryan put on the one decent suit he owned, bought for Mia's mother's funeral and not worn since, and met Walsh outside the courthouse. She looked him over and nodded approval. "Remember, stick to the facts. Don't get emotional. Answer the questions directly." "I'll try." "Ryan." She put a hand on his arm. "You're a good father. Let them see that." The courtroom was smaller than Ryan expected. Just a conference room with a judge's bench and a few rows of seats. Patricia Moss was there with a lawyer from the county attorney's office, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a self-satisfied expression. They'd brought exhibits, photos of Ryan's house showing the peeling paint and water damage, financial records demonstrating his poverty, even a transcript of his interview with Moss that made him sound neglectful and unstable. The judge was a woman in her 50s named Angela Rodriguez. She listened to both sides present their opening statements with a neutral expression that gave nothing away. Then it was Ryan's turn to testify. The county attorney went after him immediately, asking about his employment history, his housing situation, his decision to allow a stranger into his home with his daughter present. Ryan answered as calmly as he could, feeling Walsh's eyes on him, reminding him to stay composed. Mr. Carter, you claim to have your daughter's best interests at heart, yet you chose to involve yourself with Clara Hayes despite knowing her family was looking for her, correct? I helped someone who needed help. Someone you didn't know. Someone who could have been dangerous. She wasn't dangerous. She was scared. But you didn't know that when you let her in. I made a judgment call. A judgment call that resulted in your home being watched by unfamiliar vehicles, threatening phone calls, and ultimately your job loss and eviction. Would you say those were consequences that served your daughter's best interests? Ryan's jaw tightened. I would say that teaching my daughter to help people who need it, even when it's risky, is better than teaching her to look away. Noble sentiments, Mr. Carter, but nobility doesn't keep a roof over a child's head or food on the table, does it? Walsh stood. Objection. The county attorney is making speeches, not asking questions. Sustained, Judge Rodriguez said mildly. Move along, counselor. They went back and forth for another 20 minutes. The county attorney painted Ryan as irresponsible, financially unstable, prioritizing strangers over his daughter's safety. Walsh countered with evidence of Ryan's years of devoted parenting, Mia's excellent school performance, statements from teachers and neighbors. Then they brought in Patricia Moss. In my professional opinion, Moss testified, Mr. Carter's recent choices demonstrate poor judgment, the unemployment, the housing instability, allowing unauthorized individuals access to his child. These are red flags that suggest he may not be capable of providing adequate care. And what would you recommend? The county attorney asked. Extended custody while we conduct a thorough investigation. At least 30 days, possibly longer. 30 days. Ryan felt his chest constrict. 30 days without Mia. Walsh cross-examined Moss aggressively, pointing out that Mia was healthy, happy, and thriving by every measurable standard. That Ryan had never been late picking her up from school, never missed a parent-teacher conference, never failed to provide for her basic needs despite limited resources. Ms. Moss, isn't it true that the complaint against Mr. Carter was filed anonymously? Yes. And isn't it true that the timing of this complaint coincides exactly with Mr. Carter's refusal to cooperate with individuals seeking information about Clara Hayes? I don't see how that's relevant. It's relevant because it suggests this entire case is retaliation, not legitimate concern for a child's welfare. The county attorney objected. Judge Rodriguez sustained it. Finally, Walsh put Ryan back on the stand. Mr. Carter, tell the court about your relationship with your daughter. Ryan took a breath. Mia is my whole world. Her mother left when she was 5. Just walked out. I've been raising her alone ever since. I work 2 jobs, or I did, to make sure she has what she needs. We don't have much. Our house is falling apart, and we eat a lot of cereal for dinner, and I can't afford the fancy field trips or the nice clothes other kids have. But she's loved. She's safe. She knows that no matter what, I've got her back. And the night you helped Clara Hayes? I saw someone in trouble and I helped her. That's what I want Mia to learn. That you don't turn away when someone needs you, even if it costs you something. Maybe especially if it costs you something. Ryan looked directly at Judge Rodriguez. I'm not a perfect father. I screw up all the time. But I love my daughter more than anything in this world. And I would never, ever do anything to put her at risk. Taking her away from me doesn't protect her. It hurts her. And punishing me for doing the right thing sends her a message I never want her to learn. The courtroom was quiet when he finished. Judge Rodriguez reviewed her notes for a long moment. Then she looked up. I've heard testimony from both sides. I've reviewed the evidence. And while I have concerns about Mr. Carter's housing and employment situation, I see no evidence that Mia Carter is in immediate danger or that her father is unfit to care for her. Ryan's heart started pounding. However, the judge continued, I am troubled by the instability of the current living situation. Therefore, I'm ordering the following. Mia Carter will be returned to her father's custody immediately. However, Mr. Carter will participate in weekly check-ins with a social worker for the next 90 days. If the housing situation is not resolved within 30 days, we will revisit custody arrangements. Additionally, Mr. Carter will attend parenting classes and allow monthly home visits. Your Honor, the county attorney started, but Rodriguez held up a hand. My decision is final. This emergency custody was an overreach, and I will not extend it based on speculation and anonymous complaints. Mr. Carter, your daughter will be returned to you today. Don't make me regret this decision. I won't, Ryan managed. Thank you. Walsh grabbed his arm as they left the courtroom. That was close. Too close. You've got 30 days to find stable housing. I'll figure it out. Ryan, I'm serious. Rodriguez gave you a break, but she meant what she said. If you're still facing eviction in 30 days, I said I'll figure it out. They released Mia that afternoon. Ryan picked her up from the foster home, and she ran to him like he'd been gone for years instead of 3 days. She was still crying when they got to the car. I don't ever want to go back there, Daddy. You won't, I promise. You're coming home and you're staying home. That night, Ryan made Mia's favorite dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup, the cheap kind from a can, and they ate together at their small kitchen table while she told him everything about the foster home. The other kids were mean, the foster parents were okay, but not nice like him, and the house smelled weird. She'd barely slept, had nightmares, had cried for him constantly. Ryan listened and felt rage burning in his chest at Richard Hayes, at everyone who'd participated in this cruelty. They'd terrorized a 7-year-old girl to punish him for helping someone. That wasn't justice. That was evil. After Mia was asleep, Ryan sat on his porch and called Clara. We got her back, he said. Oh, thank God. Ryan, I've been going crazy waiting to hear. Yeah, well, we're not out of the woods yet. I've got 30 days to find stable housing or they revisit custody. What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm behind on rent here. Tommy's hours aren't enough to catch up, and nobody's going to rent to someone with an eviction on their record. He laughed bitterly. I won the battle, but I'm still losing the war. Clara was quiet for a moment. What if you didn't stay in Seattle? What? Hear me out. My father's power is concentrated here. His connections, his influence, it's all local. What if you left? Started over somewhere he can't reach you? With what money? And I can't just uproot Mia. You can't lose her either, Ryan. And if you stay here, Hayes will keep coming after you. But if you go somewhere else, somewhere he doesn't have leverage. She took a breath. I have that account I mentioned. I could give you enough to relocate, get a fresh start. I can't take your money. Yes, you can. Because I'm offering it and you need it, and your pride isn't worth your daughter's safety. Her voice softened. Please, let me do this. It's the least I can do after everything you've sacrificed. Ryan sat there in the dark, looking at his sagging porch, his dying lawn, the house that had never quite felt like home. And he thought about Mia, about giving her a real chance at stability instead of this constant scramble to survive. Where would we even go? He asked. Anywhere. Pick a city. I'll help you find a place, help you get settled. You can start over without Hayes' shadow hanging over you. It was tempting. So tempting, it scared him. Let me think about it, Ryan said finally. Okay, but Ryan, don't think too long. We're running out of time. After he hung up, Ryan sat on his porch until nearly midnight, weighing his options. Stay and fight, or run and survive. Neither felt like winning. But maybe, he thought, survival was enough. Ryan spent the weekend pretending everything was normal. He took Mia to the park, made pancakes for breakfast, watched her favorite movies until she fell asleep on the couch. But underneath the forced normalcy, his mind was spinning through scenarios, none of them good. On Monday morning, after dropping Mia at school, he drove to the FBI office. He hadn't called ahead, just showed up and asked for Agent Torres. She kept him waiting 20 minutes before appearing in the lobby. Mr. Carter, I wasn't expecting you. I need to know where your investigation stands. How close are you to moving on Hayes? Torres gestured toward the conference room where they'd met before. Once inside with the door closed, her professional mask slipped slightly. We're building the case. The evidence you provided opened several avenues we're pursuing, but Hayes has layers of protection. Shell companies, intermediaries, lawyers who know how to muddy every transaction. This isn't something we can rush. How long? Months, maybe longer. I don't have months. Ryan leaned forward. He took my daughter, Agent Torres. For 3 days, I didn't know if I'd ever get her back. And even now, I've got 30 days to find housing I can't afford, or they take her again. So I need to know, is this investigation actually going somewhere, or am I waiting for something that's never going to happen? Torres studied him with those sharp, assessing eyes. Off the record? Sure. Hayes knows we're looking at him. He's been contacted for preliminary interviews. His lawyers are already filing motions to limit our access to records. He's preparing for a fight. She paused. But he's also scared. I can see it. Men like Hayes don't scare easily. which means your evidence hit close to something real. So yes, this is going somewhere. But the wheels of justice turn slowly, especially when the person you're investigating can afford to gum up the works. What if I could get you more? Ryan asked. More evidence, I mean, direct testimony from Clara. Would that speed things up? It might. But Mr. Carter, I have to advise you, if Clara Hayes goes on record against her father, he will retaliate, against her and against anyone helping her. You've already experienced that firsthand. So what, we just let him win? I'm not saying that. I'm saying you need to understand the cost. Torres stood, walked to the window overlooking the street. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen what happens when people go up against the wealthy and connected. Sometimes they win. More often, they get crushed. And the worst part is watching good people sacrifice everything for a fight they can't win. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you're trying to do the right thing in a system designed to protect people like Richard Hayes from consequences. And I admire that. But I also worry you're going to lose everything, and Hayes is still going to walk away untouched. Ryan stood too. Then help me make sure that doesn't happen. Work your case faster. Find something that sticks. Because I'm not running Agent Torres. I'm going to stand here and fight until either he goes down or I do. Torres turned from the window. You're either very brave or very stupid, Mr. Carter. Probably both. She almost smiled. All right, I'll push as hard as I can, but you need to prepare for the possibility that it won't be enough. Ryan left the FBI office feeling no better than when he'd arrived. Torres was doing what she could, but months, maybe longer, wasn't going to save his housing situation or protect Mia from another custody grab. His phone rang as he was getting in his car. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Carter? Not Preston this time. A different voice, older, with the kind of cultured authority that came from decades of getting exactly what you wanted. This is Richard Hayes. Ryan's grip tightened on the phone. What do you want? To have a conversation, man to man, without intermediaries or lawyers or threats. Your people already made plenty of threats. Yes, and you ignored them all, which is either admirably principled or foolishly stubborn. I haven't decided which. Hayes sounded almost amused. I'm calling because I believe we can resolve this situation in a way that benefits everyone involved. I'm not telling you where Clara is. I know where Clara is, Mr. Carter, or at least I know she's with her college friend Melissa Chen in Fremont. I've known since 2 days after you dropped her off. Ryan's blood went cold. Then why? Why haven't I simply retrieved her? Because my daughter is an adult, and dragging her home by force would create exactly the kind of spectacle I've spent my life avoiding. Also, frankly, because she's made it clear she's willing to cause significant damage if I push too hard. Hayes paused. She told you about the evidence she's been gathering, I assume? Ryan didn't answer. I'll take that as a yes. Here's what I know, Mr. Carter. You've already delivered some portion of that evidence to the FBI. Agent Rebecca Torres is conducting an investigation into my business dealings, and my daughter is prepared to go public with additional allegations if I continue to interfere with her life or yours. Sounds like you're in a bad position. Hayes laughed, a dry sound without warmth. I'm in an inconvenient position. There's a difference. The investigation will eventually stall. These things always do when you have competent legal representation. The evidence Clara has compiled is damaging but not catastrophic, and public allegations from a daughter with a documented history of conflict with her family can be explained away as rebellion or instability. She doesn't have a history of instability. That's a lie you tell people. Perhaps. But it's a lie many will believe because it's easier than accepting that someone might reject wealth and privilege for principles. Hayes' tone sharpened. But this conversation isn't about my daughter's mental state. It's about reaching an agreement. I'm not interested in any agreement with you. Hear me out. I'll drop the eviction proceedings. I'll ensure the social services investigation is closed with a finding of no wrongdoing. I'll even provide a reference for new employment. I own a construction firm that's always looking for skilled mechanics. In exchange, you stay out of my family's business. You don't provide further evidence to the FBI, you don't encourage Clara's vendetta, and you let this situation resolve itself naturally. Naturally meaning Clara comes back under your control. Naturally meaning my daughter eventually realizes she can't survive on pride and stubbornness alone. Hayes sounded tired suddenly, like this conversation was costing him something. I'm not the villain you've made me out to be, Mr. Carter. I'm a father trying to protect his daughter from making catastrophic mistakes. The marriage to Gregory Brennan would have secured her future, connected her to a network of powerful people who could protect her. She didn't want that future. She's 25 years old. She doesn't know what she wants. She knows she doesn't want to be sold off like property. Silence on the line. When Hayes spoke again, his voice had gone cold. I've made you a generous offer. Think very carefully before refusing it. I don't need to think. The answer's no. Then you're condemning yourself and your daughter to a very difficult future. I was attempting to be reasonable, Mr. Carter. Don't mistake that for weakness. Hayes hung up. Ryan sat in his car, hands shaking, and realized he'd just refused what might have been his only way out of this mess. But the alternative, helping Hayes control Clara, abandoning the investigation, was unthinkable. He called Clara. Your father knows where you are. He just called me. What? Clara's voice went sharp with panic. How long has he known? Since 2 days after I dropped you off, apparently. He hasn't come after you because he thinks you'll come back on your own eventually. That arrogant son of a... Clara cut herself off. What did he want? Ryan explained the offer. Clara listened in silence. He tried to buy you off, she said when he finished. Yeah. And you said no. Of course I said no. Ryan, maybe you shouldn't have. If he's willing to drop the eviction, get social services off your back, that solves your immediate problems. At the cost of abandoning you and letting him get away with everything? No thanks. But Mia needs to see that you don't compromise with bullies, even when they make it easy. Ryan started the car. Your father thinks he can wait us out, that eventually you'll run out of money or options and have to go back. We need to prove him wrong. How? By going public. Not just with the FBI, with everyone. Media, press, whoever will listen. Make enough noise that he can't bury it. Claire was quiet for a long moment. If I do that, there's no going back. My family will disown me completely. My brother, my father, all of it, gone. Is that really a loss? I don't know. They're terrible people, but they're still my family. Her voice wavered. And if this backfires, if nobody believes me or the story gets buried anyway, I'll have burned everything for nothing. Or you'll have freed yourself. Your choice, Clara. But make it soon because we're running out of time. That night, Mia asked the question Ryan had been dreading. Daddy, are we going to have to move? They were sitting at the kitchen table, Mia picking at her dinner. Boxed mac and cheese again because it was cheap and she liked it. Maybe, baby. The landlord wants us to leave. Because of the lady who stayed with us? Sort of. I liked her. She was nice. Ryan smiled despite everything. Yeah, she was. If we move, can we get a house with a backyard? Sarah at school has a backyard with a swing set, and she says I can come over sometime, but I want my own swing set. We'll see what we can find. Does "we'll see" mean no? It means I don't know yet, Mia. I'm working on it. She nodded, accepting this with the same resignation she'd accepted so many other disappointments. It killed Ryan that at 7 years old, his daughter already knew not to expect much. After she was asleep, Ryan spread out his financial situation on the kitchen table. Bills, bank statements, the eviction notice, everything. The math was brutal no matter how he arranged it. Even with Clara's offer to help, relocating meant first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, moving costs, finding a new job in a new city. And 30 days wasn't enough time to arrange all that. Unless he took Hayes' deal, stayed in Seattle, kept his current housing, got help with employment. All he had to do was step aside and let a powerful man control his daughter's life. Ryan crumpled the eviction notice in his fist and threw it across the room. The next morning brought unexpected news. Walsh called while Ryan was driving Mia to school. The eviction hearing's been moved up. They want it heard this Friday. That's 4 days from now. They can't do that. Apparently they can when the landlord has connections and files the right motions. Ryan, this is Hayes putting pressure on. He wants you out of that house before the 30-day deadline Judge Rodriguez gave you. What do I do? Show up and fight. I'll be there. But I have to be honest. Unless you can prove the eviction is retaliatory or you can suddenly pay everything you owe, we're going to lose. After dropping Mia at school, Ryan drove to Fremont. He needed to see Clara face to face, needed to figure out their next move. Melissa's apartment was in a converted warehouse with exposed brick and industrial windows. Clara answered the door in jeans and an oversized sweater, looking more relaxed than the terrified woman who'd shown up on his porch 3 weeks ago. But her expression tensed when she saw him. "What happened?" "Everything's accelerating. Eviction hearing Friday. Your father called trying to make a deal, and I think we're out of options for playing this quiet." Melissa emerged from the kitchen, a petite woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Clara's told me what's going on. This is insane." "Welcome to my life," Ryan said. They sat around Melissa's small dining table, and Clara pulled out her laptop. "I've been documenting everything, the evidence I originally compiled, plus new information I've found. There's enough here to make a legitimate case that my father's been operating outside the law for years." She turned the laptop so Ryan could see. Spreadsheets, scanned documents, photos, email chains. But going public means burning every bridge, and there's no guarantee it'll work. "What if we don't go to the press?" Melissa suggested. "What if we post it online, social media, Reddit, wherever? Let it spread organically so no single outlet can be pressured to bury it." Ryan looked at her. "Would that work?" "Maybe. If the story's compelling enough, if people care, it could go viral. Then the press would have to cover it because everyone's already talking about it." Melissa leaned forward. Rich guy forces daughter into arranged marriage, daughter runs away. Rich guy retaliates against the poor single dad who helped her. That's a story people will pay attention to. "It's also risky," Clara said. "If we frame this wrong, it looks like a bitter family dispute. My father's lawyers will shred my credibility." "Then we don't make it about your family drama," Ryan said. "We make it about the corruption, the bribes, the unsafe working conditions, the environmental violations. You're not a spoiled rich girl rebelling. You're a whistleblower exposing criminal activity who happened to be born into the wrong family." Clara bit her lip, thinking. "We'd need to be strategic. Release information in stages. Start with the evidence that's hardest to dispute, build credibility, then escalate to the more serious allegations." "How long would that take?" "Days? Maybe a week if we do it right." "I don't have a week. I have until Friday before I'm evicted." Melissa stood up. "Then we start today. Right now. Claire and I will put together the first release, something that establishes her credibility and introduces the broader story. We'll post it everywhere we can think of, and then we see what happens." "What do you need from me?" Ryan asked. "Your story. The threats, the job loss, the custody fight. You're proof that Richard Hayes retaliates against anyone who crosses him. That makes you part of the narrative." Ryan thought about Mia, about exposing their lives to public scrutiny, but he also thought about Hayes getting away with everything, about teaching his daughter that power always wins. "Okay," he said, "let's do it." They spent the rest of the day crafting Clara's statement. It took hours to get the tone right, factual but compelling, damning but not hysterical. Clara wrote about her father's business practices, the arranged marriage, her decision to run. She included documentation of the bribes and safety violations, enough to prove she wasn't making it up, but not so much that it overwhelmed the human story. Ryan added his piece, a straightforward account of helping Clara and the consequences he'd faced. No embellishment, just facts. Lost his job. Facing eviction. Had his daughter temporarily taken by social services, all after doing nothing but offering shelter to someone in need. Melissa set up accounts on every platform she could think of and scheduled the post to go live at 8 p.m. "Prime time," she explained. "Maximum visibility." At 7:45, the three of them sat around Melissa's laptop, watching the clock tick down. Clara's hands were shaking. "Once this is out there, I can't take it back," she said. "Do you want to take it back?" Ryan asked. "No, I'm just scared." "Me too." The post went live at 8 p.m. exactly. For the first hour, nothing happened. A few likes, a couple of shares, mostly from Melissa's friends. Ryan felt his hope deflating. Maybe this wasn't going to work. Maybe nobody cared about one more story of rich people behaving badly. Then, around 9:30, something shifted. A popular Twitter account with 500,000 followers retweeted Clara's statement with the caption, "Rich heir exposes her own family's corruption after they tried to sell her off. This is wild." Within minutes, the retweets started multiplying. Then the Reddit posts. Then the news aggregators. By 10 p.m., Clara's story was trending. By 11 p.m., Local news outlets were reaching out for interviews. By midnight, it had jumped to national news sites. Ryan watched the numbers climb, shares, comments, views, and felt something like hope blooming in his chest. People were angry. They were sharing their own stories of powerful people crushing ordinary folks. They were demanding accountability. "It's working," Melissa breathed. "Holy shit, it's actually working." Clara was reading comments, tears streaming down her face. "They believe me. People I've never met are saying they believe me." Ryan's phone rang. Agent Torres. "Mr. Carter, what exactly did you just do?" "Took the fight public." "I can see that. My office has been flooded with calls. The press is demanding comment on our investigation." She didn't sound angry, exactly. More surprised. "This is going to put enormous pressure on us to move faster." "Is that a bad thing?" "For Hayes, yes. For the investigation? Maybe. We'll have to be careful not to appear like we're acting on public pressure rather than evidence." Torres paused. "But between you and me, this might be exactly what we needed to break through his defenses." After she hung up, Ryan sat back and watched the story spread across the internet like wildfire. For the first time since he'd opened his door to Clara 3 weeks ago, he felt like maybe they weren't going to lose. The backlash came Tuesday morning. Ryan woke up to dozens of missed calls and texts from numbers he didn't recognize. When he made the mistake of checking his email, his inbox was flooded with messages, some supportive, many hostile. People accusing him of exploiting Clara for attention, of being a gold digger, of making the whole thing up. Then there were the threats, vague ones about minding his own business, specific ones about what would happen to him and Mia if he didn't shut up. Ryan deleted them all and tried not to think about whether any were serious. At work, his diminished security shift, his supervisor pulled him aside. "We need to talk." Ryan's stomach sank. "Let me guess. I'm fired." "Corporate doesn't want the liability. With all this media attention, you've become a distraction." The supervisor at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I fought for you, but the decision came from above my head." So now he had no job at all. Perfect timing with the eviction hearing 3 days away. But the news wasn't all bad. By Tuesday afternoon, 3 different law firms had contacted Walsh offering pro bono assistance with Ryan's eviction case. 2 journalists wanted to interview him, and a GoFundMe that Melissa had set up without telling him had raised almost $15,000 from strangers who'd read the story and wanted to help. "I didn't ask for charity," Ryan protested when Melissa showed him. "It's not charity. It's people who are tired of watching rich assholes win." Melissa pointed at the screen. "Read the comments. This isn't about you specifically. You've become a symbol. The regular guy who stood up when nobody else would." Ryan scrolled through the comments, people sharing their own experiences with powerful people crushing them. People saying they wish someone had helped them the way Ryan helped Clara. People who were inspired or angry or just wanted to do something good. "Okay," he said quietly. "Thank you." A Tuesday night, the national news picked up the story. Ryan watched himself on television. A photo someone had found from Mia's school directory, which was embarrassing, while an anchor discussed the viral story of a single father facing retaliation for helping a whistleblower. They interviewed Clara via video call. She was poised and articulate, laying out her father's corruption without vengeance or hysteria. Just facts and documents and the quiet insistence that powerful people shouldn't be above the law. The anchor asked if she was afraid of her father's response. "Terrified," Clara admitted, "but more afraid of what it means if I stay silent. More afraid of teaching other people that you can't fight back." Wednesday brought Richard Hayes' response. His lawyers released a statement characterizing Clara as mentally unstable, claiming Ryan had manipulated her for financial gain and threatening legal action against defamatory allegations. Hayes himself appeared on a local news program looking distinguished and wounded, a father concerned for his troubled daughter. "Clara has struggled for years," he said sadly. "We've tried to get her help, but she's resistant. And now she's fallen in with people who are encouraging her delusions for their own benefit. It's heartbreaking." Ryan watched the interview with clenched fists. Hayes was good, convincing enough that people who wanted to believe the powerful man over the runaway daughter would find justification. But the evidence Clara had released was harder to dismiss. Environmental regulators announced they were reviewing violations at Hayes construction sites. Labor investigators were looking into worker safety complaints, and the FBI, under pressure from the media attention, released a statement confirming their ongoing investigation into Hayes Development Corporation. Thursday morning, the day before the eviction hearing, Ryan got a call from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Carter, this is Marcus Hayes, Clara's brother." Ryan's first instinct was to hang up. "What do you want?" "To talk. 5 minutes. Please." Against his better judgment, Ryan agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown. Marcus Hayes was nothing like his father. Younger, nervous, dressed in an expensive suit that somehow looked uncomfortable on him. He stood when Ryan approached, extending a hand that Ryan ignored. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said, sitting back down. "You've got 5 minutes." Marcus wrapped his hands around his coffee cup like he needed something to hold on to. "My father wants to destroy you. He's got lawyers working around the clock to dig up anything they can use against you, and trust me, they're good at finding things that don't exist. Tomorrow's eviction hearing, he's paying the judge." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Clara's my sister, and despite everything my father says, despite the family line I'm supposed to maintain, I know she's not crazy. I've watched him control her whole life, dictate every choice, treat her like a business asset instead of a person." Marcus met Ryan's eyes. "When she ran, part of me was relieved. Someone in this family finally had the guts to say no. So help her, publicly." "I can't. If I go against my father, I lose everything, my position in the company, my trust fund, my place in the family. I'm not as brave as Clara." He looked ashamed saying it. "But I can help in other ways. Information, heads up about what my father's planning. I can't save you from him, but maybe I can help you save yourself." Ryan studied Marcus, looking for the trap. "What's the catch?" "No catch, just keep my sister safe. She deserves a life that's actually hers." Marcus stood to leave, then hesitated. "The eviction hearing tomorrow. My father's judge is named Kenneth Morrison. He owes my father multiple favors. But Morrison's also terrified of public scrutiny because he's angling for a federal appointment. If you can get media at that hearing, make it public enough that he can't just rule in my father's favor without consequences, you might have a chance." "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm the only Hayes who actually cares whether Clara's happy." Marcus pulled out his wallet, extracted a business card, and slid it across the table. "My personal cell. If you need anything, information, warning, whatever, call me." Then he was gone, leaving Ryan sitting alone with a coffee he hadn't ordered and a business card that might be a lifeline or another manipulation. He called Walsh and told her about the meeting. "Media at the hearing could work," she mused. "Make it radioactive for the judge to rule against you. But it's also risky. Could backfire if we look like we're trying to manipulate public opinion. At this point, I'll take risky over hopeless. All right, I'll reach out to some journalists who've been covering the story, see if we can get bodies in that courtroom." That night, Ryan sat Mia down for a serious conversation. She was getting old enough to understand that something big was happening, even if she didn't grasp all the details. "Tomorrow's an important day," he told her. "We're going to court to fight to keep our house." "Are we going to win?" "I don't know, baby. I hope so." "What if we don't?" "Then we'll figure something else out. We always do." Mia was quiet for a moment, swinging her legs under the chair. "Sarah at school says her mom read about you on the internet. She says you're famous for helping people." "I'm not famous. I just did what anyone should do." "But not everyone does, right? That's why people think it's special." Ryan pulled her into a hug. "Yeah, I guess so. I think it's special too. Even if we have to move and I don't get a swing set, I think you did good, Daddy." Ryan held his daughter and felt tears burning behind his eyes. Whatever happened tomorrow, at least he'd shown Mia what standing up looked like. That had to count for something. Friday morning arrived cold and clear. Ryan put on his suit, made sure Mia's breakfast was set up for Mrs. Patterson to supervise, and drove to the courthouse with his heart in his throat. The media was already there. 5 news vans parked outside, cameras being set up, reporters doing pre-hearing stand-ups. Walsh met him at the entrance, looking grimly satisfied. "This is good. Judge Morrison's going to think twice about any obvious favoritism with this many cameras watching." Inside, the courtroom was packed. Ryan recognized some faces from the news coverage, journalists, activists, even a few people who'd contributed to the GoFundMe. His landlord's lawyer looked deeply unhappy about the crowd. Judge Morrison entered looking like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. He was younger than Ryan expected, with the kind of smooth competence that came from years of making decisions that didn't ruffle important feathers. "This is an eviction proceeding," Morrison said curtly, "not a media circus. I'll have order in my courtroom." The hearing started badly. The landlord's lawyer, a shark in an expensive suit, laid out Ryan's failure to pay rent, his violation of occupancy terms, his general unreliability as a tenant. He made it sound like Ryan was a deadbeat who'd been mooching off his landlord's generosity for years. Walsh countered with the suspicious timing, the suddenly accelerated proceedings, the fact that Ryan had been current on rent until circumstances beyond his control intervened. She introduced evidence of Hayes' involvement, the registered letter, the coordinated job loss, the pattern of retaliation. "This isn't a simple eviction, Your Honor. This is an orchestrated attack designed to punish Mr. Carter for helping a woman escape an abusive family situation." Morrison looked skeptical. "Do you have proof of coordination between the landlord and Mr. Hayes?" "Not direct proof, no, but the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming." "Circumstantial evidence isn't enough for me to deny a property owner's right to remove a non-paying tenant." Ryan could see where this was going. Morrison had his ruling prepared. He'd find some legal justification to grant the eviction while claiming his hands were tied. And with media watching, he'd make it look like reluctant adherence to the law rather than corrupt favoritism. Then something unexpected happened. Clara walked into the courtroom. She'd clearly dressed carefully, professional but not wealthy, nothing that screamed privilege. She moved to Walsh's table and leaned down to whisper something. Walsh's expression brightened. "Your Honor, I'd like to call an additional witness, Clara Hayes." The landlord's lawyer shot to his feet. "Objection. Ms. Hayes wasn't on the witness list. She has directly relevant testimony regarding the circumstances of this eviction." Morrison looked torn. Denying her testimony would look suspicious, but allowing it might open doors he wanted closed. Finally, he nodded. Clara took the stand, swore the oath, and faced the courtroom with the same quiet determination Ryan remembered from that first night. Walsh asked her to explain her relationship to Ryan and the circumstances that led to her staying at his house. Clara didn't hold back. She described her father's control, the arranged marriage, her escape. She explained how Ryan had helped her when she had nowhere else to go, asking nothing in return. And then she detailed the retaliation, the systematic destruction of Ryan's life designed to punish him for interfering with Richard Hayes' plans. "My father doesn't lose," she said clearly. "When someone crosses him, he destroys them. And that's exactly what he's doing to Ryan Carter. This eviction, the job losses, the custody fight, it's all retaliation. And everyone in this courtroom knows it." The landlord's lawyer tried to discredit her, bringing up her father's claims about mental instability, suggesting she was lying for attention. But Clara had documents, texts from her father's lawyers coordinating the various attacks, emails discussing strategy, even a recorded voicemail from Michael Preston explicitly connecting Ryan's housing situation to his refusal to cooperate. "Where did you get that recording?" the lawyer demanded. "My brother gave it to me. He's tired of watching our father ruin people." Morrison looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. The courtroom was completely silent, every reporter scribbling notes, cameras fixed on Clara. Finally, Morrison spoke. "I'm going to take a brief recess to consider the evidence." He was gone for 30 minutes. When he returned, his expression was carefully neutral. "This court finds that while Mr. Carter is technically in violation of his lease agreement, the circumstances surrounding this eviction are questionable enough to warrant further investigation. I'm denying the eviction petition at this time and ordering a full review of the landlord's practices and connections." He looked at the landlord's lawyer. "If your client wants to pursue this, he can refile in 60 days after that review is complete." It wasn't a total victory, just a postponement, but it was enough. 60 days gave Ryan time to get his feet under him, time for the FBI investigation to progress, time for things to maybe shift in his favor. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them. Ryan let Walsh do most of the talking while Clara stood beside him, looking exhausted but relieved. "Ms. Hayes, what's next for you?" a reporter called out. Clara looked at Ryan, then back at the cameras. I'm going to keep fighting to hold my father accountable, and I'm going to help Ryan Carter however I can because he risked everything to help me when nobody else would. Do you plan to reconcile with your family? No? They've made it clear that I'm only welcome if I surrender my autonomy. That's not a family, that's a prison. She took a breath. I'm building a new life, one that's actually mine. Ryan's phone buzzed as they were leaving, a text from Marcus Hayes. That took guts. My father's going to escalate. Be ready. Ryan showed it to Clara. She read it and nodded grimly. He's right. My father's not going to accept this, especially not with the FBI investigation heating up and the media watching. Let him escalate, Ryan said. We've made it this far. We can handle whatever comes next. But as they drove away from the courthouse, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still ahead. They'd won a battle, maybe even turned the tide of public opinion, but Richard Hayes had spent his entire life winning wars. And men like that didn't go down without taking everyone around them down too. The escalation Marcus had warned about came that same night. Ryan was making dinner when his phone rang. Agent Torres, her voice tight with urgency. Mr. Carter, we have a problem. Richard Hayes just filed a lawsuit against you for defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. He's seeking $5 million in damages. Ryan nearly dropped the phone. $5 million? I don't have 500. That's the point. He's not trying to win. He's trying to bury you in legal fees and force you to back down. His lawyers filed in federal court an hour ago. You'll be served papers tomorrow. Can he do that? Just sue me for helping his daughter? He can sue you for anything. Winning is a different question, but the process alone will destroy you financially unless you've got serious legal backing. Torres paused. There's more. He's also filed a restraining order against Clara, claiming she's mentally unstable and a danger to herself. There's a hearing Monday morning. Ryan sank into a chair. He's trying to force her back, or at least silence her. If the restraining order goes through, she'll be prohibited from making public statements about him or his business. It's a gag order dressed up as protective custody. After hanging up, Ryan called Clara. She'd already heard. My father's lawyer called Melissa's apartment an hour ago. They know exactly where I am. Her voice was shaking. Ryan, I can't let him lock me up again. I can't go through psychiatric evaluation or forced treatment or whatever else he's planning. I'd rather disappear completely. Don't run. Not yet. We're close to something here. I can feel it. Torres is building her case. The media's on our side. Your brother's feeding us information. If you run now, you're giving your father exactly what he wants. And if I stay, I might end up in some facility with doctors he's paid off telling the world I'm delusional. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. Ryan's mind was racing. What if we get ahead of it? Do another interview, a big one, before the hearing. Lay out everything, the lawsuit, the restraining order, the pattern of control. Make it so public that any judge will think twice before ruling in your father's favor. That's a huge gamble. Everything we've done has been a gamble, but it's worked so far. Clara was quiet for a long moment. Okay, but Ryan, if this goes wrong, if I end up committed or forced back home, promise me you'll keep fighting. Don't let him win just because I'm not there to help. I promise, but it's not going to come to that. Melissa knew a producer at a major news network who'd been following the story. By Saturday afternoon, they had an interview scheduled for Sunday evening. National broadcast, primetime, millions of viewers. Clara would tell her story in full, live, where it couldn't be edited or buried. This is it, Melissa said as they prepared. After tomorrow night, there's no putting this back in the box. Sunday morning, Ryan took Mia to the park. She'd been asking questions about why Daddy was on TV, why people kept calling the house, why strangers were saying nice things about them on the computer. He'd been deflecting, trying to shield her from the chaos, but she was too smart for that. Are we in trouble? She asked, swinging higher on the swing set. No, baby, we're not in trouble. Then why does everyone keep talking about us? Ryan pushed her gently, watching her dark hair fly out behind her. Because sometimes when you try to help people, other people don't like it, and they try to make things difficult. But we're handling it. Is Claire okay? She's scared, but she's brave like you. Mia dragged her feet to stop the swing and turned to look at him. I heard Mrs. Patterson talking to her friend. She said Clara's dad is really rich and really mean, and he's trying to hurt you because you helped Clara. So much for shielding her. Mrs. Patterson talks too much. Is it true? Ryan knelt down in front of the swing so he was eye level with his daughter. Yeah, it's true. Clara's dad wants her to live a certain way, and when she said no, he got angry. And because I helped her, he's angry at me too. But we're going to be okay. How do you know? Because we've got something he doesn't have. What? We've got each other. And we've got people who believe in doing the right thing, and that matters more than money or power. Ooh, Ryan hoped he sounded more confident than he felt. Sometimes the good guys actually win, Mia. Not always, but sometimes, and I think this might be one of those times. Mia threw her arms around his neck. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby. More than anything. That evening, Ryan watched Clara's interview from his living room while Mia slept upstairs. Clara had dressed simply, jeans and a sweater, minimal makeup, nothing that suggested wealth or privilege. She looked like what she was, a young woman who'd been through hell and was still standing. The interviewer, a veteran journalist named Patricia Whitman, didn't pull punches. Your father claims you're mentally unstable, that you've fabricated these allegations as part of a breakdown. What do you say to that? Clara looked directly into the camera. I'd say it's a convenient narrative for a man who spent my entire life controlling every aspect of my existence. I'm not mentally ill. I'm a whistleblower who happens to be related to the person I'm exposing. That doesn't make me crazy. It makes me inconvenient. You've released documentation of illegal activity at your father's companies. Are you prepared for the legal consequences? I'm prepared for whatever comes. Because the alternative is staying silent while my father continues to exploit workers, bribe officials, and treat people as disposable. I can't live with that silence anymore. Whitman shifted gears. Let's talk about Ryan Carter. Your father has filed a $5 million lawsuit against him. Some people are questioning his motives in helping you. Ryan Carter is the most genuine person I've ever met. When I showed up on his doorstep, he had every reason to turn me away. He was struggling financially, raising his daughter alone, barely getting by. But he helped me anyway, asking nothing in return. And now he's paying the price for that kindness. Clara's voice strengthened. My father's lawsuit isn't about defamation or damages. It's about punishing someone for having the courage to stand up to him. And if we let that happen, if we let powerful people destroy anyone who challenges them, then we're all complicit. The interview went on for 30 minutes. Clara discussed her childhood, the arranged marriage, her escape. She showed documents, played recordings, presented evidence that was impossible to dismiss as delusion or fabrication. By the time it ended, Ryan's phone was exploding with messages. One was from Marcus Hayes. My father just threw a glass at the TV. You've officially made him lose control. Be careful. He's most dangerous when he's cornered. Another from Torres. That interview just gave us more leverage than 6 months of investigation. Hayes is going to have to respond, and whatever he says, we'll use it. But the message that mattered most was from Walsh. Judge Morrison just called. He's reconsidering the restraining order hearing, says he wants to review the evidence more carefully before making any decisions. That interview bought Clara some time. Ryan called Clara. You did it. You really did it. I just told the truth. She sounded exhausted. But Ryan, I'm terrified. Tomorrow I was supposed to face that hearing, and now I'm in limbo. What if my father comes for me tonight? What if he decides legal routes aren't working and just takes me? He won't. Too many people are watching now. You don't know him like I do. When he's backed into a corner, he doesn't follow rules. Ryan heard the fear in her voice and made a decision. Pack a bag. I'm coming to get you. You and Melissa both. You can stay here tonight where I can keep an eye on things. Ryan, that's not negotiable. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He called Mrs. Patterson to watch Mia, then drove to Fremont faster than was strictly legal. Clara and Melissa were waiting outside with overnight bags, looking spooked. There was a car, Melissa said, as they loaded bags into Ryan's trunk. Black Mercedes, parked across the street for the last hour. Soon as you pulled up, it left. They're watching you. Yeah, we figured. Back at Ryan's house, they set up the women in the living room while Ryan made coffee nobody really wanted. It was close to midnight, and they were all running on adrenaline and fear. So what's the plan? Melissa asked. We can't just hide here forever. We don't have to hide forever, just until the FBI moves or the public pressure gets too intense for Hayes to keep fighting. Ryan looked at Clara. How much more evidence do you have? Anything you've been holding back? Clara hesitated. There's one thing. I wasn't sure about releasing it because it involves my brother, but Marcus gave me access to internal company communications. Emails between my father and his lawyers discussing how to bury the environmental violations, how to pay off inspectors, even strategies for discrediting me if I ever went public. That's huge. Why didn't you release that with everything else? Because it would expose Marcus. The emails are from his company account. If I release them, my father will know Marcus betrayed him. Does Marcus know you have them? Yes. He said to use them if I needed to. But Ryan, if I do this, my brother loses everything. His job, his inheritance, his whole life. And despite everything, he's still my brother. I don't want to destroy him. Ryan understood. Family was complicated, even when they were terrible. What if we give Torres the emails instead? Let the FBI use them as part of their investigation. That way it's not you publicly burning Marcus, it's law enforcement following evidence. Would that protect him? Maybe. At least it gives him some cover. Clara nodded slowly. Okay, I'll send them to Torres tonight. She did, and Torres called back within an hour. These emails are exactly what we needed. Combined with the evidence you've already provided and the public attention from tonight's interview, we can move forward with formal charges. I'm recommending we bring Hayes in for questioning this week. What kind of charges are we talking about? Ryan asked. Bribery, environmental crimes, labor violations, potentially racketeering if we can establish a pattern of criminal enterprise. It's enough to seriously damage him, maybe even put him away. How long until you move? Days. We've been building this case for weeks, and now we have enough to act. But Ryan, understand that Hayes will know it's coming. He's got sources everywhere, and when he realizes he's about to be indicted, he's going to lash out. Monday morning arrived with unexpected news. The restraining order hearing had been canceled. No explanation, just a notice from the court that the matter was being dismissed without prejudice. Walsh called to explain. Morrison got cold feet. Between the media attention and the FBI investigation heating up, he doesn't want to be seen doing Hayes any favors. He's protecting his own ass. So Claire's free? For now, but Hayes can refile any time. This isn't over. It wasn't. That afternoon, Ryan got a call from an attorney representing Richard Hayes. Not Preston this time, someone higher up the food chain. Mr. Carter, my name is Robert Davidson. I represent Mr. Hayes in all matters related to his daughter and your unfortunate involvement in family affairs. I'm calling to make you a final offer. I'm not interested in, but please listen. Mr. Hayes is willing to drop all legal action against you, including the defamation suit. He'll ensure the eviction proceedings are permanently dismissed. He'll provide a reference for future employment and a one-time payment of $100,000. All he asks in return is that you cease and desist all cooperation with law enforcement regarding his business affairs and that you encourage Ms. Hayes to do the same. So he wants to buy our silence. He wants to resolve this matter quietly before it causes irreparable damage to everyone involved, including you and your daughter. Tell Mr. Hayes that he can take his $100,000 and, Mr. Carter, think carefully. You're facing financial ruin. You have a child to consider. $100,000 would change your life. I don't want money that comes from selling out someone who trusted me. Then you're a fool. Davidson's voice went cold. Because Hayes is going to win this, one way or another. The FBI's investigation will stall. It always does. The media will move on to the next story, and you'll be left with nothing but legal bills and a daughter who'll suffer because her father chose pride over pragmatism. Ryan hung up. Clara had heard the whole conversation from the couch where she'd been pretending to read. He offered you $100,000? Yeah. That's a lot of money, Ryan. That's stability for you and Mia. You should consider... I'm not considering anything. We're seeing this through. Even if it destroys you? Even then. Ryan sat down across from her. You know what I realized? I spent years being powerless. Working myself to death and still barely surviving, watching people with money and connections get away with whatever they wanted while people like me got crushed. I accepted it because I thought that's just how the world works. But helping you showed me something different, showed me that sometimes you can actually fight back. And even if I lose everything, at least I'll know I tried. Clara's eyes were wet. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most stubborn. Probably both. The FBI moved on Wednesday. Ryan was at the park with Mia when Torres called. We're executing search warrants at Hayes Development Corporation right now. Office, personal residence, everything. And we've got a team bringing Hayes in for questioning. Is this it? Are you arresting him? Not yet. We're gathering final evidence and putting pressure on him to make a mistake. But Ryan, this is significant. We don't execute warrants like this unless we're confident in our case. By that evening, every news outlet was running footage of FBI agents carrying boxes out of Hayes' downtown office. Richard Hayes himself was photographed being escorted into a federal building, looking older and smaller than his public image suggested. The media circus was intense. Reporters camped outside Hayes' home, his office, even Ryan's house, until Walsh got a restraining order to keep them back. Clara did more interviews, carefully explaining the evidence and the scope of her father's alleged crimes. Public opinion swung heavily against Hayes. Here was a billionaire who'd exploited workers, bribed officials, and tried to control his own daughter's life. The narrative wrote itself. But Hayes wasn't going quietly. His lawyers filed motions to suppress evidence, challenged the search warrants, and launched a PR campaign painting him as a successful businessman being persecuted by overzealous federal agents. They trotted out character witnesses, employees who loved working for him, charities he'd supported, community leaders who praised his philanthropy. It might have worked if not for the workers. 3 former Hayes Development employees came forward with stories of unsafe conditions, ignored complaints, and retaliation for speaking up. One man had lost 3 fingers in an accident at a construction site and been paid $5,000 to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Another woman had reported sexual harassment and been fired within a week. Their testimonies, combined with Clara's evidence and the FBI's investigation, created an overwhelming case of systemic abuse of power. 2 weeks after the FBI raid, Marcus Hayes walked into a federal building and spent 6 hours giving testimony against his father. Ryan only knew about it because Marcus texted him afterward. Done. I'm probably disowned, but at least I can sleep at night. Ryan texted back. Welcome to the club. The grand jury indictment came down 3 weeks after Clara's interview. 17 counts, including bribery, wire fraud, environmental crimes, labor violations, and obstruction of justice. Richard Hayes was arrested at his home and held on $2 million bail, which he paid immediately. But the damage was done. His company's stock tanked, investors fled, board members resigned. The empire he'd spent decades building was crumbling. Through it all, Ryan kept working, picking up shifts wherever he could, scraping together money for bills, trying to provide stability for Mia. The GoFundMe had helped, and Walsh had negotiated a payment plan for her legal fees, but money was still tight. Then one morning, Ryan got a call from Tommy at the auto shop. Hey, so I know I said I couldn't give you hours back, but corporate just got bought out by new ownership, new management, new priorities. I've got 40 hours a week if you want them, plus benefits starting after 90 days. Ryan almost dropped the phone. Seriously? Seriously, you saved my ass more times than I can count. Soon as I had the authority, you were my first call. You in? Hell yes, I'm in. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. Enough to catch up on bills, enough to prove to social services he was stable, enough to start rebuilding. The eviction case quietly disappeared. Without Hayes' backing, the landlord suddenly lost interest in removing a tenant who was now current on rent and receiving positive media coverage. Walsh got it dismissed with prejudice, meaning it couldn't be refiled. The defamation lawsuit took longer to die, but eventually Hayes' lawyers withdrew it as part of a broader strategy to minimize negative publicity during the criminal trial. They claimed it was a gesture of goodwill. Everyone knew it was because they couldn't win. Clara moved out of Melissa's apartment and into a small place in Capitol Hill, working as a paralegal for a nonprofit that helped domestic violence victims. It wasn't the life of wealth and privilege she'd been born into, but she seemed happier than Ryan had ever seen her. I never realized how exhausting it was, she told him over coffee one afternoon. Pretending to be someone I wasn't, playing the role my father wrote for me. This life, paying my own bills, making my own choices, actually working for what I have, it's harder, but it's real. No regrets? About leaving? Never. About dragging you into this mess? She smiled ruefully. Every day. But also, I'm grateful because you're the only person who treated me like a human being instead of a chess piece or a problem to solve. Ryan's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Trial date set. 6 months from now. My lawyers say I'm getting immunity for testimony. How's that for family values? Your brother's testifying against your dad, Ryan said, showing Clara the text. She read it and nodded. He called me last week. Said he's done being complicit. That watching me stand up gave him the courage to do the same. How do you feel about that? Proud of him. Sad that it took this long. Grateful he finally found his spine. She set down her coffee. My father's going to prison, Ryan. Even with the best lawyers money can buy, the evidence is too strong. He's going away for years. Good. Yeah, good. But she looked sad saying it. The trial was a media sensation. Every day brought new revelations about Hayes' business practices, his attempts to control Clara, his systematic corruption. Marcus's testimony was devastating, a son calmly detailing his father's crimes, presenting internal communications that showed Hayes knew exactly what he was doing. Clara testified too. She spent 2 days on the stand walking through her childhood, the arranged marriage, her escape, and the retaliation that followed. She was composed and credible, even when Hayes' lawyers tried to paint her as vindictive or unstable. Ryan attended every day of the trial, sitting in the back of the courtroom and watching justice slowly grind forward. Hayes looked diminished at the defense table, no longer the imposing billionaire, but just an old man facing consequences he'd spent his life avoiding. The jury deliberated for 3 days. When they came back, they found Richard Hayes guilty on 14 of 17 counts. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison and ordered him to pay $30 million in fines and restitution. It was over. Outside the courthouse, Clara stood in front of a wall of reporters and cameras, looking exhausted but relieved. Do you have any comment on your father's conviction? A reporter asked. I hope this sends a message that wealth and power don't put you above the law. That people who abuse their positions, who hurt others for profit or control, will eventually face consequences. She paused. And I hope it encourages other people in situations like mine to speak up, to know that standing up to powerful people is hard and scary, but possible. What's next for you? I'm going to keep working, keep building a life that's mine, and I'm going to stay in touch with the person who made all this possible. She looked directly at Ryan, standing at the edge of the crowd. Ryan Carter is the bravest person I know. He risked everything to help a stranger, and he never wavered even when it cost him nearly everything he had. The world needs more people like him. 6 months after the trial, Ryan was finishing up a brake job at the shop when Mia called. Daddy, Clara's here. She brought pizza. Ryan smiled. Clara had become a regular presence in their lives. Sunday dinners, trips to the park, movie nights where she and Mia would gang up on Ryan about his terrible taste in films. It was comfortable and easy, like family without the complications. He arrived home to find Clara and Mia setting the table, arguing good-naturedly about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. Mrs. Patterson was there too, having been adopted into their strange little circle somewhere along the way. Over dinner, Clara announced that she'd been promoted at work, associate director of the Victim Advocacy Program, with a salary that actually covered rent and groceries with money left over. That's amazing, Ryan said. You deserve it. I'm thinking about going back to school too. Law school, maybe. Use what I learned from all this to actually help people. You'd be a great lawyer. After dinner, after Mia was in bed and Mrs. Patterson had gone home, Clara and Ryan sat on the porch with beers, watching the Seattle rain fall in the streetlights. I've been thinking, Clara said, about that night you opened your door, about how different my life would be if you'd turned me away. You'd have figured something out. You're resourceful. Maybe. But I also might be married to Gregory Brennan right now, miserable and trapped, convinced that was just my fate. She turned to look at him. You gave me a chance to choose my own life. That's not a small thing. You did the hard part. I just gave you a place to crash. You gave me hope, Ryan. When I'd lost all of it, when I thought powerful people always won and fighting back was pointless, you showed me different. You stood up when you had every reason not to. That changed everything. Ryan thought about the scared woman who'd shown up on his porch, soaking wet and desperate. About the journey that followed, the fear, the fights, the moments when he'd been sure they'd lose, about his daughter being taken and the eviction notices and the lawsuit he couldn't afford. I almost gave up a dozen times, he admitted. Almost took your father's money. Almost told you to go somewhere else. Almost decided keeping my head down was smarter than fighting back. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He took a drink of his beer. You know what's funny? I spent years feeling powerless. Like the world was controlled by people like your father, and I was just trying to survive in the spaces they allowed. But helping you taught me something. What? That power isn't just money or connections. It's also courage and stubbornness and refusing to accept that things have to be the way they've always been. He smiled. I'm still broke. I still work too hard for too little. But I'm not powerless anymore because I know I can stand up. I know I can fight. And sometimes, if you're lucky and you don't give up, you can actually win. Clara reached over and squeezed his hand. We won, Ryan. Together. Yeah, we did. They sat in comfortable silence, rain falling around them, two people who'd fought their way through hell and come out the other side, not unscathed, but intact. The house behind them was still shabby, the Honda in the driveway still held together with hope and duct tape, and Ryan's bank account still had more month than money. But Mia was asleep upstairs, safe and happy. Clara had her freedom and a future she'd chosen. Richard Hayes was in prison where he belonged, and Ryan had proven to himself that standing up mattered, that doing the right thing even when it cost you everything was worth it. The porch light flickered. It had been doing that for weeks, and Ryan kept meaning to fix it, and Clara laughed. You really should replace that bulb. I will. Eventually. You always say that. And I always mean it. She stood to leave, pausing at the top of the porch steps. Same time next Sunday? Wouldn't miss it. Ryan watched her drive away, then sat on his sagging porch for a while longer, listening to the rain and thinking about the strange path that had led him here. That knock on his door all those months ago had changed everything, had nearly destroyed him, had tested every limit he had forced him to decide what kind of person he wanted to be. He'd chosen to be the kind of person who opened the door, who helped strangers, who stood up to bullies even when they were rich and powerful and could crush him like an insect. It had cost him almost everything. But sitting there in the rain, thinking about his daughter upstairs and the friend he'd gained and the life he'd helped Clara build, Ryan thought, maybe it had been worth every painful step. Inside, his phone buzzed, a text from Torres. Appeal denied. Hayes stays in prison. Thought you'd want to know. Ryan smiled and texted back. Thanks for everything. You too, Carter. You're one of the good ones. He went inside, locked the door, and climbed the stairs to check on Mia one last time. She was sprawled across her bed, Mr. Whiskers tucked under one arm, completely at peace. Ryan stood in the doorway watching her sleep, feeling that familiar, overwhelming love mixed with the bone-deep determination to give her a better world than the one he'd inherited. He'd fought for that world, against impossible odds, with nothing but stubbornness and the refusal to look away when someone needed help. And somehow, miraculously, he'd won. It wasn't a perfect victory. There were still bills to pay, struggles ahead, no guarantee that tomorrow wouldn't bring new problems. But tonight, in this moment, Ryan Carter could stand in his shabby rental house and know that he'd done something that mattered. He'd helped someone who needed it. He'd stood up to power. He'd shown his daughter what courage looked like. That was enough. More than enough. Ryan turned off Mia's light, checked the locks one more time, and headed to bed. Tomorrow he'd fix that porch light. Tomorrow he'd tackle whatever came next. But tonight, he'd sleep the sleep of a man who'd fought the good fight and lived to tell about it. Outside, the rain kept falling on Seattle, washing away the old and making space for whatever came next. And in a small house on a quiet street, a single father and his daughter slept peacefully. Their world a little bit safer, their future a little bit brighter, because one rainy night Ryan Carter had opened his door to a stranger and refused to close it no matter what it cost him. Some stories ended with wealth or power or perfect happiness. This one ended with something better: dignity, integrity, and the quiet knowledge that when it mattered most, Ryan had chosen to be exactly who he wanted his daughter to become. And that, in the end, was everything.